Okay, so in this video, I'm going to break down everything about how to build, scale, start a self-publishing business. Self-publishing is probably the single online business, at least that I'm intimately familiar with, that is not super saturated. And that if you go to the average dropshipper, e-com guy, agency guy, and you say, hey, have you heard about self-publishing? They probably haven't heard of it. And despite that, I'd say self-publishing is the easiest way to go from $0 being made online to then making say $100, $1,000 per month online, if not a lot more than that. It is one of those very niche businesses that I think a lot of the internet at least has yet to stumble across, and a lot of that is due to the perceived boundaries that once you look into it aren't actually there. That's a lot of what I'm going to get into today. If you also have self-published a book in the past and you just want to make more money from that or write more books, this is also the video and the guidebook to you. I'm going to cover a lot in the next likely hour or two here. So let's get into it first with my background. You should only listen to me if you want to know what I'm going to cover, and you should only listen to me as well if I've actually done the things that I say I'm going to cover or in part teach you or assist you in doing yourself. So my background in self-publishing started when I was 11 or 12 years old, when I started writing just very short, few thousand word books. I think my first ebook then that actually sold a few copies was to my Instagram audience in the fitness space. I then wrote a book the next year. You can Google that. It's called Modern Guide to Stock Market Investing for Teens. That was when I was 14. And that book did really, really well organically. It was all self-published. I then took the money from that. I started building out more of a system, writing a lot more books, hiring people to write, to edit, to design, to market, and so on. And then I ran that business for a number of years under a publishing, imprint and name there. Now, I think my best month in terms of profit was about $12,000. So if you want to make a lot more than that, then don't listen to me. I'm purely going to focus on how I was able and the strategies that I used to get to that, $10,000 or so per month in profit mark, in addition to making upwards of, a few $1,000s a month in profit per book. I'm also going to talk about how to sell, how to exit the business for that anywhere from 4 to 10x multiple range. I have explored that and I have sold part of an account in the past. What I also really want to focus on here is how to systemize the business, how to actually turn it from a passion into a business. I'm going to touch on that very shortly. There's a lot more there, but basically just you can read the list. That's what we're covering. Don't listen to me if you want to make, multi-millions of dollars per book or sell your business for 5, 10, 20 plus $1 million, which people have done. I also have never hit a New York Times or Wall Street Journal bestseller list. And there's this guy on YouTube. I love him so much. He has like 100 subscribers. His videos get, 300 views. He's made maybe 10 of them total. And then I just haven't seen anything from him in the past decade. And he has this one video where he says, hey, here's how to get like 100 million Kindle, pages read. And you can see the screenshot there. That is an actual screenshot from the video. I don't know what happened to him, but he's done really well. I have not hit numbers close to that in terms of Kindle, pages read. So don't listen to me. Go listen to him if you want to learn about that. Now, that said, here specifically is what I'm going to cover. So how to start from nothing. And I think this business specifically is truly one of the only online businesses where you can start from zero. Then the repayment schedule for most of the platforms, or the royalty schedule, is 90 days after the end of the month in which a book is sold. So what that means is if you put a book out tomorrow, then you're only going to get paid for it, say 90 to 120 days in advance. So for that reason, that's why I say you can start getting paid within 90 days. That depends on a whole lot of factors, but we will generally focus on, hey, you have no money. Here's how you can start. And also, if you have some money, and I'll emphasize that at different points throughout this, here's how you can use that money most efficiently, most effectively to kind of add gasoline to the fire there. We're also going to focus on how to distribute content around the world and how to really get the most bang for your buck from each book that you put out, right? Because creating a book ultimately does take effort. If it's good, it should take effort, right? So you don't want to just throw up, and a lot of people do this, one ebook, one paperback on, say, KDP in the US. If you're not familiar with those terms, we'll cover that as well. You really want to just maximize each book and what that can do to you, sales, impact, reach, and so on wise. Reviews are also a really big kind of hot button topic within the self-publishing space, as in everyone wants to game the system, get a lot of reviews, and getting, legitimate, honest reviews, either for no money or for a little bit amount of money, in a way that is within the terms of content, or excuse me, the terms of service within these platforms, is, a fairly hard thing to do. I'm going to cover a system that I think is the best I've seen, that I've used on plenty of books, that can, is really the best of both worlds there, that can get you a lot of reviews for relatively little amount of money. I'll cover this in just a few slides, so I won't touch on it for too long, but a lot of self-publishing is about marketing. So I want really you to build not just a book, but a business that has a sales funnel that produces kind of evergreen sales there. That's really how you make the money here. I've also personally been screwed by Amazon with a KDP account. There's a friend of mine who managed probably 5-10 million bucks worth of annual revenue for KDP accounts, and he was just a marketer, so he was in the marketing accounts, but people gave him their login, and one day his account got suspended, and then everyone remotely associated with him that had let him into their accounts got their accounts shut down, right? And that's a ridiculous just loss of money and kind of risk there. So I want to teach you as well and kind of share my experiences there, as far as just not getting screwed over, legally protecting yourself, just protecting the business and kind of protecting yourself against existential risks there as best you can. And then finally, again, how to exit the business. I want to really emphasize here, I don't have any info product to sell you. I do not have a course. I do not have an ebook where I'm trying to say, hey, here's how you build a business, or coaching or anything like that. This is genuinely my best advice, my honest, just here's how to do it, from now nearly 6-7 years in the space. So I think the first question here is, well, why should you self-publish? Again, a lot of people aren't familiar with it. Self-publishing as a whole means that, as opposed to going through a traditional publisher to publish a book, like say Penguin, Random House, Simon & Schuster, those kind of guys, you are publishing the book through a variety of platforms and systems out there that let you list it yourself and get onto platforms like Amazon, Target, Walmart, and so on. The key word here is that this is not the gold mine of a business, right? And by that I mean, it's extremely passive if you compare it to most business models, but not a single model out there is truly 100% passive. So if you compare this to drop shipping, for example, if you compare it to e-commerce, to an agency model, to media, blog, to any even just 9-to-5, like a job, right? This is pretty passive. And by that, I mean, the work really is stacked in the upfront period. It's in creating a good book, whether you do that or you hire people to do it. It's in publishing it, and it's in having the knowledge and the accolades to set up funnels, ads, and so on. Once that's done, books make money for years, and they can do so extremely passively, right? There are products I haven't touched in 5-6 years that are still making hundreds of dollars a month. I think multiple wise, that's like 20, 30, 40 grand in equity per book, and that's all extremely passive. It's also guaranteed, and again, this is comparatively guaranteed, in that a lot of other online business models are actually a lot harder just to get kind of the first dollar, the first client, or so on. That's really not the case with self-publishing. I can nearly guarantee that if you do the things I'm going to detail throughout this video, you will make some amount of money, you'll sell some amount of units, you will get some amount of results. That doesn't mean you're going to be a millionaire overnight. I'm not pitching get rich quick here. What I am saying is there's a system and a way to do this, where if you do it, you are going to see some results. And if you do it really well for long enough, then you do start to get those really, really, impressive kind of life-changing results there. As a final note, self-publishing is just creative. It's literary. And if you like books, if you're a big reader or a writer, then this 100% is something you should look into or get started with. Okay, so the first key, and I'm going to list a number of keys throughout this presentation, is that you have to approach self-publishing as a system and as a business, not as a hobby. I see a lot of people who want to self-publish a book because they're passionate about it, right? And that's great, seriously. Or they just want to play around with it and see how a book goes and see if it takes off. Ultimately, if you want to scale the impact of the book, get more readers of it because you're passionate about it, And if you want to make a lot of money doing this or just produce a lot of books, you can't approach it as, oh, I like this subject, I like writing, I like reading, I like how this cover looks. Maybe my friends will like it or the local bookstore. You can't approach it as that. This has to be just like any other business that anyone starts out there, where, hey, it's ultimately an algorithm, it's a numbers game, it's a matter of data, and a lot of it is about the management of people and finances and copy, split testing, optimization, right? Things like that are kind of the tenets as far as this business and making it work goes, whether you have one book that you've published or whether you want to publish 1,000. And I also want to cover both people who say want to just publish their one book and who really, really want to make a business out of it. But again, even if you just have one book or one idea for a book that you want to ultimately self-publish, you're still going to be better off as far as the success and the reach and the impact of that book goes to approach it in this manner versus as kind of this passion-driven hobby. Again, not that passion and having it being a hobby is bad by any means, if you want to just leave it as that. Now, this generally is the life cycle of self-publishing, right? First is, hey, you have an idea for a book. Number two is, hey, you go and write that book, you edit it, you revise it, you create the cover graphics, and then you have to distribute it. So you take the book that you just produced based on your idea and you send it out in different formats to a bunch of different places all over the world through these online platforms. And then finally, you have to make sure it sells through a variety of marketing and sales approaches and strategies. Now, those four stages, right? So ideation through to marketing, you should view them as a production line in a factory, where through these two tenets, then of iteration and automation, that's how you create the business here, right? So essentially, each book on an individual level follows the life cycle of ideation through marketing. And then taking that process of creating and ultimately selling a book and doing that once, then 5 times, then 10 times, then 100 times, and doing it better every time and delegating and automating that process, that's how you create a cohesive business here. And since we're going to walk through those 4 stages, then you can do that for just one book. But again, if you want to build a business out of it, you have to focus on automating that process, scaling it beyond you and your time, and then just really getting better at it very consciously every time you do it. Then finally, at the bottom there, you can see exit. That's just, hey, you want to sell the business. You want to actually get liquidity beyond just monthly revenue and royalties from the books or from, foreign right translation deals. Then that's kind of the last stage of the business life cycle there. So again, the first step here is, well, what do you want to write? And also not just what you want to write for, say, your first book, but on your 10th book and your 15th book and your 100th book, especially if you scale the business beyond just you as a writer and someone who's, creative and coming up with these ideas. There's obviously infinite things you could write about. And if you have an idea for one, that's great. I'm going to give you some guidelines here for going about that process. The first point that I really want to hammer in here is that if you are in this in any way for the money or for the impact or actually reaching people, as in you want, like, say, a book that a lot of people read that does really well, unfortunately, it's real. All the money, all the reach is in nonfiction. And there's a few reasons for that. All of those reasons boil down to data, in that a lot about business is a sales problem. In the self-publishing sense, nonfiction just has superior data attributes in a sense, right? Nonfiction is highly searchable, right? Because it solves a problem most often, or it's about a very specific subject. So for example, if there's a nonfiction book about how to start a dog walking business, there are going to be people who search how to start a dog walking business. That's really useful in a lot of ways. First, you can bundle the book in a way that it will rank when people search that on, say, Amazon and Google. And then 2, if you want to target those people through advertising and build a community about it and sell the book and other products to them, well, they identify themselves through that trackable, searchable intent. Nonfiction is also very useful because it's very easy to differentiate. One big problem with fiction, if you want to write and self-publish fiction, is that you really cannot, based on the cover or the title, differentiate easily from any number of the other just millions and millions of fiction reads out there. You can differentiate if someone reads about the book and the plot and so on, but getting someone to that point is the inhibitor, the impediment to how well the book does, as opposed to in the case of nonfiction, where the title off the bat is going to differentiate it, and where someone, in the case of a nonfiction book, can, 5 seconds after seeing the cover and the title and the subtitle, know everything they need to know about the problem that the book solves, who the book is for, and really if they're interested in it and going to buy it. There's also really just a lot of money and opportunity for upsells and other info products, and I'll cover that later. If you do meet if you do serve a nonfiction audience that has a very specific or kind of niche problem. Again, I'll cover that further on, but there's much more economic viability in that model if you do have these upsells and these other products to sell to a nonfiction audience, as opposed to fiction, where that's just orders of magnitude harder. And finally, nonfiction books are generally shorter because, again, you're trying most often to solve a problem or share information about a very specific subject. So in the case of a niche problem or a very specific solution, that can be a 20, 30, 40,000 word book. It can also be a 150,000 word book, right? But most of the books that are economically most productive to write, those are going to be under like the 80,000 word range, which is maybe, a few hundred pages. Comparatively, you see a lot of fiction books that are 100, 200, 300,000 words. That just takes more effort and ultimately more creativity to write, and it's a lot harder to kind of just format and systemize in the same way. So here's my general approach for you when it comes to ideation and what I've used over the last however many years. First, when it comes to nonfiction books, you really just want to focus on something that either slightly differentiates from existing kind of solutions or books out there, and generally just focuses on these spaces that don't have a lot of quality coverage. You're rarely going to find something that not a single book is being written about, but if you can differentiate in some way, and I'll show you examples in a second, that's where you're going to make the money and hit an audience that's really receptive to a solution there. As opposed to that, also approaching it through the lens of, hey, what's new? What are emerging industries, problems, ideas, and so on is a great way to do it, just because those likely are the niche problems of the spaces that have little kind of pre-existing coverage there. Also, you really want to, again, going with the theme of kind of systemizing and building a business out of this, you want to focus on something that can be repeated. Again, we'll look at examples of this in a second, but if you think about, say, Harvard Business Review or the For Dummies books, right? Those are highly visual, say like For Dummies with the yellow books, and highly repeatable concepts where you can just, let's say, again, dog walking business for covers, for dummies, but also how to start a lemonade stand for dummies, how to start and so on for dummies, right? That's a concept where if the concept sticks, then you just do that 100 times, you do it 1,000 times, you do it better every time, and then the brand also builds there. So if you can write and approach these ideas for books in ways where it's not just a one-off, you can turn it into a series, into a brand, and so on, you're going to be better off long run that way. Then here are a few examples of those, just looking at Amazon. On the left, you can see the ChatGPT Millionaire. This is good for a few reasons. First, this is a repeatable concept. So you can see he's published already, whoever this guy is, the ChatGPT Millionaire and the ChatGPT Ninja. He can also just slightly differentiate that, right? Like ChatGPT for sales, ChatGPT for design, how to prompt ChatGPT. You can make nearly infinite amount of variations there. And because it is a new and emerging industry, there are less pre-existing books that are specifically about that subject. And then finally, those are highly searchable books. If someone searches anything related to ChatGPT in Amazon or Google, those are likely to rank, as well as just, hey, how to make money with AI, how to make money with ChatGPT, and so on. At the top right there, that series alone, they've made I don't know how many millions of dollars with that. And it's just, hey, this is a quick start guide. And then they just copy and paste that very specific format across any number of business related subjects. So they've done that, extremely well as far as just branding goes. And then finally on the bottom, I've been mentioning as a conceptual example, the dog walking business and books. you can see that quite literally on the bottom right there. That is a series that's how to grow your pet business fast, repeatable books. So someone buys it once, they go and they buy the other few, $18 each, right? That can almost triple your lifetime value there as far as a customer goes, if they go and buy all three versus just one. So that's a few ways to do it well. Going off the theme of one concept or series, the second kind of key here is that you only need one big win, as in one series, one approach, one concept, one brand that does really well to become the whole business and make really an incredible amount of money, because there are so many just people and readers out there, especially when you get into other languages, other formats, and so on. So don't approach this as it's impossible. And also, if you hit gold, stick with that and don't feel bad about that. They say if life gives you lemons, make lemonade with it. If life gives you, or really you give life one good idea, book, concept, just rinse that and repeat that, do it again, and you can make just seriously millions and millions of dollars out of that. So as far as the approach and ideation goes, I want to cover briefly two of my own books that I personally did write. These are the two best-selling books out of any of those in my portfolio. On the top right there, you can see the one I mentioned, and that's The Modern Guide to Stock Market Investing for Teens. Now, the reason that did well, I think, and it did well completely organically. It sold probably 15,000 units in about 18 months. So that's about $100,000 or so in sales. Let's say anywhere from 20 to 40% margins there. That did well because every book out there that's about the stock market, if I just wrote a generic, hey, here's how to get good at stocks or how to invest book, is immediately just lost and buried in 100 years now of literature on the subject, in hundreds of thousands of books literally on the subject. And the moment I just took, as opposed to, well, as far as the content goes, right, is essentially just here are the basic tenets of investing. Here's how you invest, and here's it in a simple manner, as opposed to just branding that as here's a how to invest for newbies. Here's just how to invest, and just that as say the title or the concept. The moment I stick teens in there, I immediately avoid nearly every book out there and all the competition. And that competition became like 3 books. Like I think The Motley Fool had one that was the most popular on the subject. And writing it, I was 14 when I published that. Writing it as a 13, 14-year-old also meant I could connect and write it much better for that audience. So it may sound like, hey, you're now writing it for a much smaller audience. And that would be the case if you tried to go to a traditional publisher and pitch the book. But you're much better off just avoiding 99% of the competition and having a smaller TAM or a total addressable market versus writing a generic book that just gets lost. And that's, I think, a large reason as far as the idea, the approach goes as to why that book did that well. Then on the bottom right here, there just wasn't, when I published this a few years ago, a book about taking technical analysis and applying it to kind of cryptocurrency markets. So anyone searching for related subjects, or just anyone who's curious about the subject, couldn't find anything else out there. They see this, they're like, oh, that's cool, and they go and buy it. So I think that's, again, a large part of why that book did well, as opposed to just like, or even ignoring how well, say, it was written. It's just, hey, here's the idea and the concept, and that can almost sell itself in a lot of ways. Now, here's some tools if you want to go and get ideas from external sources yourself. You can really just browse through Amazon, see what you think of. I think also just your life is the best place to get inspiration from. If you work or people that work in kind of specific areas, just think about the problems you're dealing with, the solutions, the things that you know. You can do the same thing with other people close to you. You can also use tools. So there's bookbolt.io, which I'll go to now. Bookbolt.io is find best-selling books, jump on hot trends before anyone else. Looks like this. You can search your products, and it's very useful for, in part, low-content books, but also just the ideation side of it. There's also Publisher Rocket, I'll just Google that now. Publisher Rocket is very good as far as the data side of it goes. You can get a lot of information on keywords, competitors, categories, and so on there. I highly recommend them. Not affiliated with any of these tools, but they are really, really good for that reason. There's also SEMrush and Google Trends. So those two, just trends.google.com and SEMrush, if you Google them, give you very specific information respectively about how overall interest in a category is trending, and then number two about specific keywords and how many people are searching for those keywords. With that being said, there's a big, and you just saw it there as far as book bolt goes, but there's a big kind of dichotomy in the self-publishing space between high content and low content books. Low content books are, say, journals, coloring books, basically something where there's not a lot of writing in them. And then high content is the normal type of book that you think about. So a few hundred pages, say 100 to 400 pages of actual writing. There's a lot of people in the space who will disagree with me on this. I'm sure I'll receive a lot of flack for it. But I'm really not a fan of low content books as a whole, especially if you're new to this space or you're trying to go out there and actually make a lot of money from this, turn it into a real business. There's a few reasons for that. You can see them on the screen, but generally it's really hard to differentiate yourself with low content, right? Journals are an example. I'm sorry to say it, but you're not going to come up with a journal concept probably that's so unique that it sells itself versus any other book on the subject, or that it finds its audience on its own, right? So like people are searching for that type of journal. That's unless you put so much effort into the journal and making it unique and so on that it practically becomes a high content book in terms of the effort you have to put into it. And the general mindset that I see associated with low content publishing is I'm not going to make the low content book really good. I'm just going to make 10,000 of them. And if I make 10,000 of them, a few will do really well. Some of them will sell a little bit every month. And so I'll make, a little bit of money here and there. And that's great. As in people use it as like an excuse versus actually just creating really good products that deliver value, that bring people back to them. That's not the case for everyone in low content or every single low content book. That's just, I think, as a general rule, how it's best to approach it and how it's best to not approach it. And I say that right here. It's much easier to make $10,000 a month from one book than publish 10,000 books and make $1 a month each. And as long as books are really good, especially high content nonfiction books, the material cap in terms of the amount of money that you can make from that book really isn't there. It's a marketing problem. The total inverse is true when it comes to low content, where the people who do it well also are the people who are publishing a lot of books. So I think it's just easier, and you're actually helping people. You're delivering more value, and it's easier to systemize, build a brand, and so on if you're in the high content space. And then finally, a lot of what I'll talk about further on is building the kind of a business around this through other products, upsells, info products, affiliate deals, and so on. It's so much more difficult to do that in the low content space versus high content. So if you have, say, a $6,000 SaaS product, training or something that readers funnel into, and that's actually how you make your money from a high content book, and I know plenty of people who do it that way, you're going to make a ridiculous amount of money there. If you try and do the same with a low content book, that's really just not going to work out nearly as well, or at the very least, just you're not going to get the same bang for your buck in terms of time and effort. And then finally, if it doesn't take that much effort to make, then you can bet that a lot of people are doing it. And if it can be automated, and low content book production, there are 1,000 tools out there to basically just do it for you, then there's going to be a literally infinite amount of competition out there. There's just millions and millions and millions of books, and a lot of people who are just pumping out books in what is in large part a volume game. So that said, I want to take a moment here. We're half an hour in now to mention Odoo. If you're trying to build a business, really Odoo is the best ERP or kind of business software to do it. What they do, and I want to go to the website right now, is again, let you run all of your business on one platform. So you can see all these different tools here, whether that's a CRM, whether it's accounting, point of sale, inventory, email marketing, and so on. That takes all these different tools that you would use to run your business or any self-publishing business, and they let you do that in one platform, right? So you can see it right here. Notion, Zendesk, Salesforce, Slack, those are all tools you've probably heard of in a business-related concept. Odoo is a really useful tool to just cut costs and also just save yourself headache and time by doing it yourself. I want to sign in here briefly to a demo database here so you can see what this actually looks like, right? So this is inside of Odoo. Also, to use every single app there, it's like $27 a month. It's dirt cheap. Don't quote me on that specific number, but I highly recommend you do give them a try, either for all the apps or you just try out one app, and you can try out one app for free. So you can see we're in here. Let's say I go to the CRM, right? You totally standard, just efficient CRM setup. You have different people. And then you can do blot in here. You can type notes. You can send a quotation out to them, which merges with products in that little app over there. And then you can track those quotes, the money that you make through the accounting tool. There's a lot of other things you can do here. One app that I really like is the To-Do app. Lets you organize things very nicely there that relate to your business. And generally, again, the cohesive value of Odoo is that you can run your entire business, especially a self-publishing business, from one platform. So I am sponsored by them. This is a partnership there, and you can use a discount through the code that I'm going to link in the description in the top link there to go and get started with Odoo. And again, that is totally for free to try one app, or a coffee a day, less than that really, to use every single app out there. That's my spiel there. Odoo is great. You should go try them out. And I've been able to partner with Odoo on a number of videos for several months now. So I'm really glad I'm able to do so as a user of them, not just in that demo account, but in two of my actual businesses as well. And that right there is the only sponsored element of this video. Again, super happy to have Odoo as a partner of this channel, and I have nothing to sell you that's generically or somewhat in the ballpark of being related to self-publishing or anything you're going to see in this video. That being said, we're going to get into stage number 2 of that life cycle I showed you earlier. That is production. And production is just, you have your idea, you know what you want to write. Well, now you actually have to turn that idea into a physical book that you're going to be holding in your hand. That is a lot easier said than done. There's also a lot more that stretches beyond just one book, right? There's the audio book. There's 4 different formats for the print book, and then the hardcover book, and so on. We're going to cover all of that right now. Okay, so the production stages that we have to consider span from actually creating the interior of the book, so the actual writing, and then all the accessory work there, right? So taking that first draft and turning it into a finished, readable, frankly, product, the internal visuals and images, the cover, the title, the subtitle, the description, the keywords, product, and transferring it and transforming it into a whole kind of line of products in different formats and different languages that you can distribute around the world and on different platforms in different ways. Now, as far as the actual writing goes, I want to stress this again. When you think about self-publishing through the lens of business, longer is not necessarily better. That applies to a lot of books in a lot of ways, specifically if you consider kind of the dichotomy between fiction and nonfiction. Nonfiction books are most often there either to convey information to you or to just solve a problem that you're facing. Most of the systemized, so to speak, books, and in both of those cases, you don't want to deliver a surplus of information, right? You want to get the point across in a format and at a length where it gets the point across by taking the minimum amount of time and effort for the reader. So, for example, a 30,000 word nonfiction book is really all you need if that gets the point across. 25,000 words, 20,000 words even. And to compare, a normal page in a book is, say, 300 or so words. So if you're talking about 30,000 words, plus accessory materials, you're talking 100 to 150 pages with images, title, copyright pages, and so on. So if you look at it through that lens, as opposed to, say, a 100,000 word book or a 150,000 word fiction novel, you can really produce quite a lot of good quality books if you just break it down into its components, right? So if you write personally, if you sit down for an hour a day or 2 hours a day and you write 1,000 words, then you're writing a book a month, essentially. And that ignores revising and drafting and so on. But just in terms of creating a product, if you can write 1,000 words a day, you're pumping out a book a month. And if you hire other people who can also write 1,000 words a day, that's quality material, that's also, a book a month. Again, through this lens of nonfiction, systemized production, so to speak. There are a lot of different ways, though, to source the writing and the actual content of a book. Writing it yourself is only one of them. A lot of people do come to self-publishing wanting to create and write their own book. I'd say an equal amount of people come to it saying, hey, I think I want a business here, and I don't feel like I can write books. So in either situation, there are pros and cons to all of them, and you can really make it work however you want. Just to look at this graphic here. So you can write yourself. Ideally, you can write that in totality in a few months. So you spend 1 to 6 months writing it, you spend a few months revising it, and you're done. Hopefully you can pump out anywhere from 1 to maximum like 6 to 8 books a year. Again, considering not just the writing, but the revising as well. That's just a grind. You can do it. If you love writing, you want to write, do it yourself, and it costs absolutely nothing to do it. So it's great to just, if you're starting at zero, you want to make some money without an investment. The difficulty of writing yourself isn't actually scaling that beyond your time, and that if you have a limited amount of time to write, you can't get up to say 10, 20, 100 books a year. You're capped at say a few books a year. And that works if those books are good. It's really, again, just a matter of what you want there, and also just the logic of, hey, if you put more reps in, if you write more books, and by that I mean if your business produces more books, you're going to get luckier more often. You're going to have the one book that just organically is a hit, just again via function of volume, in addition to quality as that baseline. To hire ghostwriters also really varies in quality and price and really every metric that matters. You can go to Fiverr and pay $300 for someone in the Philippines to write a 40,000 page book. It will be borderline unreadable if you do that, but you can do it. It just, you won't get any, actual readership out of that, just because the reviews will be bad. People won't come back to it. There won't be organic, referrals and so on. So ghostwriting really is, what you put into it is what you get out of it. If you pay more, you'll get a better book. The disadvantage there, right, is that you have to spend then a lot of money to get a really good book. But there is that median ground of if you spend $3,000 to $5,000 on a good writer to write a good book, you can get a return on that if you do that at scale. Again, it's just not something you want to start with, especially if you're starting from zero. So maybe write the first few books yourself, and this is what I did. And once I had some money from those first few books, then I started hiring people, ghostwriters, and so on to write those for me. Now, as opposed to a ghostwriter, you can also hire writers that just publish under their own name. So let's say you hire a doctor who writes about a very specific medical approach, and then you use their name and their brand, and then you go publish it. You may give them a cut or so on. That's also great because they're higher quality. It's just also usually more. Now, as opposed to a ghostwriter and a paid writer, there are ghostwriting agencies. That's a business that does this in mass, and that's their whole business. They're typically a lot cheaper, and the quality is relatively higher for the lower end of ghostwriters. So if you're going to give, say, $1,000 to a ghostwriter or to a ghostwriting agency, I highly recommend going through the agency. Now, if you're trying to pay, say, $20,000, $30,000 to a ghostwriter versus an agency, go with the ghostwriter, because if you're paying 30 grand and they have books to back that up, they're probably just higher quality, and you have control over who that person is. There's two other types of books or types of sourcing content that I want to speak to. Those are the public domain books and AI books. Public domain books, right, are just books where copyright has expired, so you're allowed to reproduce or create compilations of that text. This is actually a really good way, and I do want to emphasize this. If you can't spend any money on marketing, on advertising, on ghostwriters, etc., and you don't want to write your own book, to go from zero to some amount of money passively per month. My experience with one of the distributors that I'll speak to a little bit later in this presentation is that nearly all books that you list with them are going to initially, kind of in the first 30 to 60 days, sell at least a few copies. What that means is if you create a reproduction with a nice cover or a compilation of public domain books, you're probably going to make some amount of money from those. And I put out maybe 20, 30 public domain books, and those make about a few $100 per month, again, passively. And those aren't going to, and that's totally organically, no marketing, no advertising. Those aren't going to make you rich. You're not going to, have a $1 million a year book from that or hit any bestseller lists. But you can make, again, some amount of money per month for free by sourcing content through public domain books. If you just Google, public domain book databases, you can find, the EPUB, the docs, the PDF versions of those. And then it's really just a matter of formatting and publishing them, preferably in a creative manner, like say a compilation that doesn't exist of famous authors' texts. What you can also do is look at the books that on January 1st of a given year are going to enter the public domain, because I believe there's a 70-year copyright expiration date. What that means is on January 1st, you can prepare in advance all these texts and then just publish them the moment they enter the public domain. And what that means is you're not going to have as much competition, because prior only the copyright holders could publish that text. So that's a strategy, again, that you just do once a year that can make pretty good money as well. And then finally, the elephant in the room with especially self-publishing nowadays is AI books, where a lot of people are saying just go to, I think Designer is really popular. Just generate your book and publish that. There are pros and cons there. I do want to emphasize that distributors very recently have published or created kind of AI buttons where you have to notify them if your book is AI written and you're violating the terms of service, and you could get shut down if you don't tell them that, hey, this content was AI generated. There are also, at this point, still quality concerns with AI bulk writing, or especially a lot of the long form content AI creation tools. In terms of, say, writing a 500 words or 1,000 words, AI is incredible at that. It'll beat most, frankly, nonfiction books out there, at least a lot of the self-published ones and those written by ghostwriters. But when you're thinking about, say, producing a 50,000 word text at once, then there's still, again, concerns. So my general take on it is if you can produce a quality, say, nonfiction book that's 20 to 40,000 words with AI, and you give it to a few people and they say, hey, this is good, I would read this, I'm learning something, go ahead and publish it, because it's free or cheap for you to make, and everyone's better off. Again, as long as you're not violating any terms of service, and as long as the book is quality. The alternative to that is basically just someone thinking, hey, I'm going to auto-generate 5,000 books, publish all of them, and get rich. Frankly, that's not going to work if the books are bad, and book quality has to be the baseline. So those are some of, in totality, the different ways that you can source the actual content for the books. You can see the pros and cons here. What I would generally, again, recommend as far as progressing with this over time goes is either use public domain books, potentially AI books, or just primarily writing books yourself. And these are shorter nonfiction books initially to get started. And then once you have some money to put into this, then you can start hiring writers, agencies, and so on. Now, when it comes to writing yourself, if you do choose to do this, I've personally written maybe 8 books, probably 400,000 or 500,000 words of content at this point. What I do highly recommend is breaking it down from a intimidating book that you're creating into, like I say here, 80 sections, right? So you might have 80 500 word sections in a 40,000 word book versus this intimidating book. And there's really nothing worse, or at least nothing more intimidating, again, than having just a blank document and like, oh my God, I have to create a book. What's much better is to spend a few days or a week or a few weeks just thinking through the outline, really breaking that out into each, not even chapter, but section. And then again, just sit down once a day and write 1 section, 2 sections, 3 sections, and you really will be done before you know it. The longest book that I've taken to write is probably 18 months. But I've also been able to write books in 30 to 60 days. Those are shorter books, but those are also quality books that people do like. So you can do this relatively fast. The nice thing as well about outlining the book and the structure before you write it is that you can get feedback there. You don't have to just write a whole book. And again, there's nothing worse than this, than writing the whole book, going to someone and then being like, hey, you should have done the entire structure in a different way. Because at that point, you're stuck with what you have. In terms of as well sourcing the writing, right? There's a few ways to write a book if you want to do it personally. Again, when you consider a shorter, more condensed nonfiction book, one of those is write about the things that you're good at that you know very well. So if you like to knit and you're a stay-at-home mom, right? You can write a book that's, hey, here's how to knit as a stay-at-home mom. And maybe it's just like every other how to knit book, but just because you put personal anecdotes in there and stories and so on, then you can hit that audience of stay-at-home moms and you can write something that connects to you. An alternative there is to write to learn if you don't feel like, hey, I'm really good at something or I have a book that I want to write already. So for example, let's say you work in finance and you're looking to get into, say, cryptocurrency, right? You know a lot about finance, you don't know a lot about cryptocurrency, and let's assume you're a good writer. What you can do there is just write a intro book like Crypto for Dummies, not literally, but as an example, Crypto for Dummies, where you teach yourself about crypto and then write in like a simplified version of that. Now, the counter argument there is, well, you're not an expert, so you shouldn't be the one to write about that subject or that book. What I'd say there is that if you're writing a book for people to learn about it, and you're also learning about it, then there's an angle there where you can summarize and detail these concepts in a simplified manner that the quote unquote expert may have a harder time doing just because they aren't as familiar with the subject. I'm not saying just write, again, bad books about things you don't know about. I'm also just saying that you don't have to be an expert to write a book about something depending on the angle and the lens that you choose to write it through. I also want to emphasize two more things about the more pragmatic process of writing a book. First is creating the first draft is really the easiest part of the whole process. And you can write a draft. Like I have a friend of mine who literally wrote a 20,000 word draft in, I think, just under 2 days. And then it's a month, it's 2 months, it's 3 months to revise, given his 2-day writing period. And in my experience as well, it's like 30, 60, 180 days to write. And then it's like 6 months, a year to revise that. And it takes so many more hours. So just as far as low-hanging fruit goes, delegation and kind of automation wise, really editing is the thing that you want to just pay someone else to do if you can, and revising. Otherwise, it's just, you got to sit down and you got to get that done. One of the favorite books of mine that I was going to write, this was probably 4 years ago. I sat down and I was like, oh, I'm locking in, I'm going to do this. And I wrote probably 25,000 words over 4 days. And this was in a specialized writing program on Mac. And I remember I logged into the computer one day and this application had shut down. So I opened it again. And it's like, hey, your work wasn't saved. And I'm poking around and I'm like, hey, I definitely saved backups of this in this program. And it was just gone. And it had deleted its backups that were saved, right? And that to this day just hurts me so much, because that was just there's a way you can write when you're locked in that feels good, where you're really saying what you want to say on the page. And I think I lost a lot of that right there. So that really hit home for me when it comes to just save backups, save PDF backups, like literally export them to your device or save them in the cloud, just Google Drive, whatever it may be, because you really don't want to lose those. Like they matter. Now, if you're looking for ghostwriters, there are a few ways to actually find those writers. The most popular are Upwork and Fiverr. You just search for ghostwriters, you look at the reviews, and a lot of these guys as well specialize in specific type of writing. So you can see on the bottom right there, that's a contemporary romance ghostwriter. So all he'll do all day is just write about contemporary romance. Reedsy is probably the most popular accessory site as far as these specialized platforms goes, as opposed to the general freelancer platforms. They're great. I highly suggest you check them out. And a few other platforms there are Writer Access and Ghostwriters for Hire. The only other platform that I want to mention, which is not as popular as these other ones, is just LinkedIn. Because a lot of the ghostwriters that you see on, say, Upwork and Fiverr, they're hustlers. English probably isn't their first language. They're often great writers, so don't get me wrong. But you don't get the diamonds in the rough that are, say, it's a colleague and wants to make some money. And you can find those people on LinkedIn. LinkedIn will also give you like $100, I believe, advertising credit. So you can put a post out for free, just saying, hey, I want someone to write this for me. And you can see what kind of responses you get. You can do the same on Indeed.com. They also give you a sponsored ad, or a promoted post, in a sense, credit. Now, when you think about the editing process, like I said, it takes just a ridiculous amount of time and effort. And the annoying thing about revising is that every time you go through the book to edit or revise it, you will make more changes, and that's a process that doesn't end. You could do that for years, and people do it for years, if not a decade plus. So what that means is, really, you just want to hit the point where you can get 95% of the yield, just quality wise, there, out of the 30% of time, as opposed to spending a year. Spend like 6 months, and in that 6 months you can get like 85% of the mistakes caught, and so on. And there, obviously, there's so many more tools that help you with that now than prior. The AI, the chatbots, are the number one way to do that over Grammarly and tools like that. So Claude, that's, I'd say, a chatbot that's better than GPT at most writing type services. And ChatGPT, of course, is also just the classic. But again, I would check out Claude.ai if I were you. There's also nothing more painful as, I think, a reader of a book, if you are immersed in it and then you see this just glaring, like, obviously misspelled word. It just takes you out of that experience. So just syntax, the way sentences are structured, content, and so on, that's one aspect of revising and editing. The absolute baseline is just don't have a bunch of really obvious spelling mistakes everywhere. And you do have the tools now to make sure that those don't happen. So again, ChatGPT, Grammarly, Claude, and plenty of other ones as well. Now, in thinking about the internal visuals, this really is context and book dependent. And you also don't need super advanced tools to create those graphics or images if you do choose to have them. So if you're writing a historical book, you may just pull images from Pexels, right? So just copyright-free images. If you're using graphics for often business books, you can also just pull those from copyright-free databases. Like, I think Wikipedia has a big free one as well, beyond Pexels. You can also just make them yourself, and there's a lot of free tools to do that. You can see in the bottom right there, Canva is a really good one. That's for covers as well as internal graphics. There's also a website called Photopea that is essentially a free version of Photoshop. And then Freeform as well is a Mac app that's usually good for that. Also just Photoshop, it's the classic, and you can make great things there if you're familiar with the app. Once again, I do want to emphasize this, you don't need, out of all the ways you can spend money on a book, I think you really don't need to put a lot of money into designers to do some incredible interior, like visual or image formatting or just creation. I'd say you can better allocate the money through other things and then create the graphics yourself, or just hire someone who, like on Fiverr, who for $100 can do like 30 graphics, and you will get the best return there on your money. And they usually are quality graphics, although again, this is dependent somewhat on the type of visuals that you need in the book. Now, when we think about the cover, the adage is that you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. That applies metaphorically. It doesn't apply literally, and you really often can get a good idea of a book by the quality of the cover. You also don't need to spend a lot of money at all on covers nowadays. You can see here on the screen 3 price points on three books of mine that I wrote, and how much I paid for the cover. So For the book on the bottom left there, that was $30 for a Fiverr guy who made that cover. And that's a book that's, over 4.5 stars. Plenty of people like it. The cover works, frankly. And that was $30. There's also the $500 cover, and that was a professional designer I hired at Reedsy. Frankly, that's not at all, 15 times better than the $30 cover. And I think what that really does emphasize is that you can just pay someone $40 to make all your cover files, or just to do the design, and then someone else to convert them into the format that you need, or the file templates and sizes and so on. The best, I'd say, middle ground there, if you want an agency to do a somewhat unique design, is 100 covers. So let me press on that so you can get an idea there. I'm not sponsored by them, not affiliated, but you can see this is just 100covers.com, and they do plenty of pretty good books for just your $100. The other big one there is Reedsy. I've mentioned them for a variety of use cases. They have editors, designers, publicists, marketers, ghostwriters, and designers. They're generally all have, they're all quality, kind of vetted people on the platform. So I do recommend them as well. Now, if we get back into here, so once you have written a book, the interior is done, all the content has been polished, and you have the cover, you're still not done with the creation process. And that's because the different self-publishing distributors, so like the people that you list through to get on Amazon and Target and Walmart and Barnes & Noble, they all have different requirements for the actual files. So like the interior file, the cover file, and so on. So if we think about the four main types of formats that you're going to publish in, so your paperback, your ebook, your audiobook, and your hardcover, each of those will have a different format, and each platform may have a slightly different format. That does get annoying really fast, and you do have to get that right, because if you get that wrong, then that just ruins the experience of the reader. As in, it's impossible to read a book where the bleed is really off, or the formatting was just screwed up in some way. So there's a few tools to help with that. Vellum on the top right here is absolutely incredible. Not affiliated, but they're absolutely incredible when it comes to creating ebooks, if you have, say, a docs or like a PDF file. So I highly recommend that. Calibre, if that's how you pronounce it, I don't honestly know, is also good for editing a lot of like EPUB files and requirements or just really dealing with kind of EPUB or more like traditional ebook platforms. But honestly, in terms of creation, I'd recommend Vellum a lot more than that. And then beyond that, just you don't need anything else than Word. You can do all the professional formatting you need within Word. I'd say just watch a tutorial on how to format a book in Word. Now, I want to emphasize here on these, the bottom, let me move my video here, these different cover formats. So most covers that you upload on different distributors, and I'll cover that later, will be JPEG files. The interiors will most often be PDF files, so not docs, not Word. And then your ebooks for Amazon, that'll be KPF. And then for most other platforms, that will be EPUB. So there's also a few generators here for templates to follow that are 100% necessary, or at least super helpful when it comes to these books. So I want to show you both of those here. This is for Kindle Direct Publishing, which we'll cover in a few minutes. And what this lets you do is just select, say, hey, I'm writing a paperback book that's black and white with white paper, reading left to right, and the trim size, let's say, is 6x9. And then you can say, hey, that's 212 pages. And what they'll do is generate this downloadable template here that you can just plug into Photoshop to go and actually format your cover. So it'll do, for example, the spine, like this little interior here, it'll calculate the length there and so on, so you don't have to try and just figure that out yourself. IngramSpark is a similar one. What's nice here is that you can just plug the ISBN in. So if you've already set up in IngramSpark your book, you just copy the ISBN, you paste it right there, and then it'll autofill this for you. You're done, you click submit, and it'll email you a template. So those are super useful. The other note I want to make here is that it is relatively cheap to pay someone on Fiverr to do this for you. For like $50, someone can do, say, every file format that you need. So that is a very high yield way to spend money on this and save yourself a lot of time, just because it is super easy to mess these things up, even though you do have these template generators. So I'll cover more of this later. When we're thinking about the metadata, so that's the title, the subtitle, the description, the keywords, the author bio, and so on. For a book, it depends on the type of book. If we're thinking about nonfiction, kind of self-published books, what the golden rule, I think, is if someone is searching on Amazon, on Google, or something, and they see the listing for your book, in the first 3 seconds, like just by looking at that, do they know if it's for them? And do they know what the problem it solves in, or the subject that it details? And if they do, that's great. That's how you get just conversions into actual sales. If not, well, you might want to play around with that to make it more just straightforward, right? So there's a lot, especially business books, that are like escaping the matrix, or making I don't even know. It's the ones where you go into the bookstore and you see a bunch of like people you've never heard of, and they have all these like business books. You don't want to do that. And an example of that is the book on the right here. It's like Investing for Kids: How to Save, Invest, and Grow Money, with a straightforward, nice looking cover, relatively cheap, so $7, and a lot of reviews. Someone looks at that. If they want a book about investing for kids, they know it's for them. They know people like it. They go and they buy it. So that's how to do that right. Now, this third key that I want to emphasize ties back into the idea of kind of a production line of a business, or of a self-publishing business. And there's different stages, especially when you think about the writing, the ideation, and the production process, right? So there's creating an idea, a good idea that takes some amount of time. Then there's writing it. Let's say writing it takes 3 months, and then revising it, drafting, takes another 3 months. Putting the cover files, interiors together takes a month that you can fit into the month when you're writing it. And so on. There's all these different stages that take different amount of times, or processes. There's going to be one that holds you back. There's going to be a kind of weak link in the chain there. And that's what you want to primarily attack, to kind of speed up that process and compound the business over time. Because ultimately, the more books you get out that make money, that are good, with good marketing, the more money you're going to make. So as you scale, just raise your operational efficiency by basically targeting just the slowest part of the slowest aspect, the most time consuming or expensive aspect of what you do. And this just graphic that illustrates that. We've now covered those two main stages of ideation and production. Now we're going to shift into distribution. So at this point, you had a great idea, you created the product, you have this amazing book with all its different files. And the question is, well, how do I actually get it out there? And this isn't how do I sell it? This isn't marketing or sales. This is just how do I take this book, these files essentially on a computer that I have, and turn them into things that people can buy. So first, I want to touch on the formats, and then the platforms that you can publish said formats on. So the big four there are your paperback, your hardcover, your ebook, and your audiobook. And then you can see these 10 or so different platforms here. I think the formatting did get slightly screwed up on this graphic, but you can just match those. So ACX is the big Amazon audiobook platform. So you can only publish audiobooks on there, but you do have to link that to an ebook or a paperback. Amazon KDP is also the big kind of ebook and paperback and hardcover self-publishing platform. So you can publish everything except audiobooks, which you do through ACX on there. There's also Findaway and Authors Republic. Those are two other audiobook platforms. I think they do a few other formats as well, but really they're known for audiobooks. Those are fine, but I'll get to another slide in a minute where you'll see my general recommended stack here. Draft to Digital is a big one. They do all kinds of stuff. They're very popular in the space. Then Genji, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is a international focused, especially Asian, just given the name, of course, but also just Europe and so on. Distributor, I Don't recommend them. You'll see why in a second. There's two others down here, Publish Drive and StreetLib, that are also generically popular, and you can publish with all types of formats on there. And then IngramSpark is one of the other kind of big fish in the sea there. So they're the largest self-publisher apart from KDP by far, and also have serious international reach and reach into bookstores, because most bookstores, libraries, retailers will use the Ingram kind of content network to pull all of their books and supply from. Now, so here's the main point that I want to make about, say, all these like 10, 15 different distributors, self-publisher platforms that we have, is that you really don't actually have 15 choices if you want to make serious money here. If you want to build a business, and if you want reach and you want to make money, or any one of those things, like if you just want reach, you have to publish with Amazon. Amazon controls over like literally a monopoly share in these markets when it comes to self-publishing. And if you look at, say, the sales you'll get if you publish an audiobook on ACX versus other platforms, it's like a 10 or 20 to 1 difference or spread for most books. That's just a general rule. I'm sure you can find exceptions. And it's same with KDP and KDP Select for ebooks. So the general stack that I recommend, I do this for all my books, and this is, I think, is how you make the most money and you get the most reach, is these three platforms here. So Kindle Direct Publishing, ACX, and then IngramSpark. And what this does effectively is it gets you on Amazon through KDP and ACX, which is where you're going to get probably a majority of your sales, and it's where you have a control over your sales in large part, because you have Amazon ads where you can directly track conversions. And then IngramSpark basically gets you everywhere else. So if you publish through IngramSpark, then your books will be listed on the Target website, on Barnes & Noble, on Walmart, on Google. And that's also where a lot of bookstores and libraries can find your books. So just these three platforms, like seriously, if you want to get into this, whether it's one book or 100, like I highly recommend this distribution stack right there, and that will get you everywhere. Now, if we think about the infrastructure that is required to actually make all of that happen, there's some other stuff essentially then, like, the main platforms that I want to cover. The first there is getting narration done for your book, as in for the audiobook format of your book. One option is just you read it yourself and record that. My take on it is that it's pretty hard to do and to sound good if you don't have experience. You can also use AI voices to do it. Cheap for sure. Also, I think hard to do. If you use the ACX platform, then you can hire in that platform and put out a work request, essentially, an invitation to kind of do work on that project out there. And then narrators on the platform can come in and submit little voice notes where they read an excerpt from the book, and then you pick one and you hire them. You can get guys to, like, good sounding guys to do full narration on audiobooks on that platform for $100. Like you can pay a lot more if you want to, but the lower range there is like $100 to $200 for anywhere from 30 to 60,000 word book. I recommend going with that. It's the cheapest. It's built into the distribution platform. It's generally just easiest by far. And then again, to be more specific here, as far as the formats go, KDP is where you can publish hardcover, paperback, ebook. Same for Ingram, and then just audiobooks on ACX. Now, if you're publishing the same format on multiple platforms, right? Like you want your book to sell in the Middle East and you want it on Amazon, you're going to list on KDP and IngramSpark, but you don't want duplicate listings, right? You don't want one listing on Amazon because Ingram also lists on Amazon. That's your book. And you have your Ingram listing and you have your Amazon listing. Instead, what you're going to do is buy ISBNs and attach a singular ISBN to then the KDP and the Ingram listing. And that will prevent those duplicate listings and also still get you the same distribution. If you don't have money and you don't want to put any money into this, both KDP and IngramSpark will give you free ISBNs. So 100% just do that if you don't have money. But if you are willing to spend a little bit of money, then you can buy ISBNs through an organization called Bowker. Now, here's the stupid thing about Bowker, and I've lost a stupid amount of money this way. Generally, Bowker is like the place to go for ISBNs. There's no one else in the space. Now, what I originally did is I bought when I first started buying ISBNs is I paid $125 for one ISBN, right? You can even buy 10 for $295. The stupid thing there is that for every book that you put out, you're going to need an ISBN for the paperback version, for the hardcover version, and optionally for the ebook version if you're publishing on multiple platforms. So that's 3 ISBNs per book. And if you're doing 5 books, 10 books, 50 books, you're going to need a lot of ISBNs. And Bowker prices this, whereas if you buy one ISBN, it's $125 per. If you buy 100, it's like $5.75 per. So in that sense, if you plan to do this long term and you're willing to spend a little bit of money, I highly recommend just buying 100 ISBNs at once. That brings your effective cost down to sub $20 if you're thinking about 3 ISBNs for 3 different formats per book. Now let's get back here. You can also, so there's a problem that can happen with these platforms if someone else, some bad actor, essentially copies your book and posts it on that platform, because Amazon then doesn't know who the real author is. And what they're going to do is, if that happens, is they're going to email you and they're going to say, hey, can you prove that you own this book? And what a good practice here is, if you're willing to spend, again, a little bit of money, and you don't have to do this if you're just starting, because it doesn't happen at all that frequently, is just to copyright that book formally. It costs $80 in the US. I don't know about other countries. And you pay $80, you have the documents on hand, and then there'll never be any kind of copyright problems there. You'll also set up imprints on IngramSpark and Bowker. What I really hate about a lot of books on here, let's go to Amazon.com. I'll just pull up a book of mine. A lot of self-published books is that people don't set up imprints, and then because of that, their books show up as self-published, right? So this is really bad here on a book of mine. It's like the publisher is Alan John, which is like a ghostwriter name, essentially. Like it's a fake name that I used when I was writing. And what you'll see with a lot of these is it actually says just kind of self-published when you're looking at the publisher. So instead of, like, you can see that right here, right? Case in point, it says publisher independently published. You absolutely don't want to do that. And setting up a quote unquote imprint is free. And by imprint, what I mean there is, let's go Max and Charlotte. Let's go to this book. There, I'll scroll down here. Publisher is Metaphor Publishing. So this is a self-published book, but what the author of this, did is, in IngramSpark and in Bowker and in KDP, assuming you use an ISBN that's attached to Bowker or IngramSpark, is you just create, you can Google this, there's just a little button where you type in a name, you create a quote unquote imprint, and then those ISBNs are attached to the imprint. So let's say Metaphor Publishing on Bowker is attached to your ISBN, that when you're creating your ebook and your paperback on Amazon, you plug that ISBN in, and then it will automatically input Metaphor Publishing as the imprint. So that's how you look professional with that, as opposed to it saying it's independently published. Now, there's also a Library of Congress control number in the US, and there's similar things in other countries. What that basically is you sending your book, a copy of your book, to the National Library of the Congress Library, I guess, sending a copy of that to them before it's published. And that is needed because they give you a number when you do that. That number is needed by a lot of libraries and bookstores if you do want to get into those types of institutions, just to even list you. because that's kind of one of those like hoops to jump through if you want to be like a quote unquote serious book that's not independently published. And a lot of self-publishers, their books don't get into any physical stores because they don't do these things, as in they use the free ISBNs, they don't register with or get a LCCN number, they don't set up imprints, so it obviously looks self-published. And if you do it that way, you're going to be basically blacklisted from the quote unquote serious like literary institutions. A few other things here as far as the metadata goes. Author.amazon.com, let's click on that, is where you can set up author profiles. So a description, a profile image, and so on. So once you publish a book, you just sign in, you claim your book, and you can fill out information that way. You can also claim a profile on Goodreads and on Bookshop. So I'm sure you all know Goodreads, of course, and then Bookshop is somewhat similar. What's nice about Bookshop is that you do rank fairly quickly with a good-looking kind of profile page. There's also WorldCat. WorldCat is a basically indexer of books and libraries. So what this helps you keep track of which libraries your books are in, right? So you can just search for your book and it'll have a list. For example, let's say Rich Dad, Poor Dad as a book. We'll search for that. So let's go here. And then we can see this book has one edition in 12 libraries. And then you can see the libraries that your book is in if you do that on your own book. Okay, with all of that in mind, let's get on to some more metadata tips. So first, I recommend a call to action in the description. So at the bottom, that's just like, hey, add to cart now, buy it now. That does typically just help with conversions there. All the copy, quote unquote copy, like sales text that you write in whatever format that is, really should be very terse as well. It should be snappy. It should very easily and kind of in a straightforward way detail who the book is for, what the problem is, and what the solution is, as well as call out any kind of social proof you have. So like if it's 4.8 out of 5 stars, if this doctor left a review, whatever that may be. As far as keywords go, because you'll set up keywords on KDP, on Ingram, and other platforms as well, just don't go for general keywords. Keep it niche, and that will help you rank in those kind of very specific verticals. The last note I want to make here is A+ content on Amazon. So A+ content, they came out with just a few years ago, and this is an example on Profit First. So if you scroll down here, you can see this content, these reviews here, and then from the publisher with, again, more images. These kind of things are super helpful in increasing conversions from people who visit the sales page of the book. And you can do that through Amazon. So I'm not going to pull up the exact or login right now, but you can see, you can just go to sell.amazon.com/tools/A+ content. If you're signed in here, there's a very simple workflow to go and create that content for your books. So I highly recommend that for all of the books that you do publish. Now, pricing is a big point that people get stuck on. What I want to generally emphasize is that when you think about a nonfiction book, you're generally either giving someone entertainment, you're making them money, or you're making them more educated or kind of smarter, so to speak, about a subject for whatever reason. The more money, literally, that you make them, or the more you help them with something niche, like a niche problem or a niche subject matter, generally, the more they're willing to pay for that type of book. For example, if you have a general, hey, here's how you invest in stocks book, there's a lot of those out there. The price is not that elastic. Meanwhile, if you have here's this very specific algorithm that's going to make you 12% this year if the S&P makes 6% this year in the market, you now have a lot more room there to charge more for that. So That's mostly, and I will bound that to paperback and hardcover books. Ebook sales generally, if you charge anything over $3.99, you are going to get a very steep drop off there. That's based on general studies about the subject. That, however, does include a lot of fiction books as well, where you have a lot less kind of price elasticity. So once again, if you have technical books, if you have specific nonfiction books, and if you have books that make people money, or at least that's the pitch and the hope of the book, then you also can go over that $3.99 mark. Um, the general approach, though, here is that you don't really know how the market's going to respond. So what you can do is just start at a fairly low given price, whatever that may be, and then just increase it $1 every few months. And after a few years, if you see, or even just 6 months, if you see sales start to drop off, then okay, this is kind of where I should set the price for the book. Like let the market tell you, essentially. On ACX, the audiobook platform, you cannot actually set the price, and they will do that for you. You're still going to make fairly good money on those, so I wouldn't worry about it if I were you, and it's mostly based on length. So if you have longer books on ACX, they will automatically charge more for it, and then you will, get paid more for the book. The standard price ranges for any self-published book, or really just any book as a whole that you publish, is going to be between 12 and roughly $20 for paperback, 14.32 for hardcover, and then again, ebooks. You don't often go over $4, but range up to kind of $9 as far as the generalized majority go. With KDP, especially KDP Select, if you price an ebook under $2.99, then the royalty that you get drops from 70% to 30%. What that effectively means, and what Amazon is doing by setting it up that way, is that you really can never price a book under $2.99. If you do that, you're going to make no money. So for ebook, for most books, just $3.99 is a great price. If you want to be a little cheaper, you can go $2.99. If it's technical, if it makes people money, you get up to like 5, 6, 9, even 12, $15 for an ebook. And you can see that in these two books right here. Stephen King, right? Super popular. You know it's a good book, just going off the brand there. And that's a $14 hardcover. And then this technical analysis book, also well reviewed, is $35 for the paperback. And that's discounted from $49. Okay, now the next subject I want to touch on as far as distribution goes is international distribution, that being translation deals. By default, if you publish on IngramSpark and through expanded distribution with Amazon, you will make your books available in a lot of countries, a lot of continents around the world. One other subject that I don't see a lot of people in the self-publishing space touch upon is translation deals with foreign agencies, where you're not just taking your English version of a book and then translating it, and then just selling it in another country, but a partner company there is taking your book in English, translating it into the local language, and then they give you a cut, like a royalty deal, based on how many units are sold there. So there's generally two ways to go about that, or in terms of how those deals happen as a self-published writer. First is inbound. So that's just, if your books do well, you will get emails, and I have a few on screen here. Or I really just going through one process on one deal, where your book does well, other people think they can make money from it, they'll let you know. So like these people here, they're a copyright agency based in Bangkok, and one of their client publishers wants to license the language rights for that book. So they send over a contract, and then you can see the terms for that contract on the right here. You're not going to make an extraordinary amount of money with most of these inbound deals. So like here, I think I made $1,700 as an advance. And then let's see, about 10%, about 7 to 25%, depending on the format, off of about 3,000 copies sold. So 7% off $7 is like 70 cents times 3,000 copies is like maybe $4,000 US total off the first print run, including the advance there. So you're not going to make an extraordinary amount of money by any means, but this is more revenue, especially if you weren't going to translate in the first place into those languages. And also the partner agency will put more effort into marketing and just really get more reach for your book, right? Like that first print run there that is 3,000 more copies of that book then that go out into the world. Then that's the inbound side of it. There's also the outbound side of it. Outbound is, well, reaching out to these people in mass and trying to just secure and kind of pitch the deals as opposed to them coming to you. My one last note on inbound there that I did just note on the slide here is that make sure you have a book, or excuse me, an email address in all of your books that you do regularly check. Otherwise, they won't be able to contact you if they wanted to. So then this is the infrastructure for the outbound that you can do if you want to publishers. I've made other videos on this channel about cold email that you can see, and I'll list one in the description. But generally, you can find different publishers through websites like Query Tracker. They're great for agents as well. But you can also see right there, find publishers. So once you have an email, so you have, say, 1,000 publishers you want to reach out to around the world, you need the infrastructure and the media there. So that's the media kit. So it's like, hey, this is essentially the pitch for the book. This is why you should do a translation deal for it. And then here's also just what it's about. And then to actually send the emails, you also need email domains. So that's at something.com, email addresses. So outreach at insert publisher name.com, info at translations at, and so on. And then again, that book proposal that I mentioned. Now, to find publishers to reach out to, I mentioned Query Tracker. That's especially good for agents, but also good for publishers. You can also use a variety of lead platforms like Instantly, Apollo, and Cognism. I highly recommend all of those. And then you can write your actual emails, so your sequences to reach out to these people. So the first one may be something like, hey, we're a publisher based in the US. We have this book that we think will do well in, say, the Korean market. I've attached a media kit detailing the book and why we think it will do well in this market. I'd love to set up a call and just, see if you're interested in moving forward with this. And then that's your first email. You'll have a follow-up in there, kind of a Hail Mary, and so on. You'll also need a out of office, subsequence, because a lot of the people who you send these emails to, I'd say like somewhere between 5 and 20%, depending on the time of year or month, may be out of office, and you'll get a default response back from them. And then if you have this subsequence, which reaches out to people saying, hey, like let's say 1 to 2 weeks later saying, hey, you were out of office, just wanted to follow up with this. In my experience, you get double to triple the response rates there. So you can see a campaign of mine on the bottom right here. There's about 18,000 emails sent. The open rate, since that's not tracked on most campaigns, isn't accurate. So the actual open rate on these campaigns is somewhere between 75 and 90%, depends on the campaign. Response rate or reply rate was about 3%, and about $550,000 worth of opportunity was generated as a result of those emails there. So the benchmark there is they're just industry benchmark really for response rates, which is one of the principal metrics, is somewhere between 1% and 4%. I think the highest I've ever seen on email outbound like this is 7% at scale. If you're doing under 1%, that's concerning. And then 2, 3, 4% are all really solid benchmarks there. And then open rate wise, if you're under 60%, I would be concerned if I were you. 60 to 80% is normal. And then 80% plus, that's great. And that also is cumulative open rates over the course of a 3 to 5 email sequence. And if you have a really low open rate, there's probably something wrong with your emails or your domains, as in the infrastructure just isn't set up correctly. What you can do to test that is to use a very basic subject line in an email. For example, you should never write an email, a cold email, a subject line that sounds salesy, like, hey, here's my book, you should publish it, or can you publish my book, etc. If you do just a subject line like hey dash name or thoughts dash name, that should get on average, say, 70% open rate. So that's kind of the benchmark you can use to say, well, if my normal sequences are getting 30% and my hey dash or thoughts dash email individual name is getting 70%, then well, it's a problem with the subject line. And if those are both 30%, then it's probably a problem with deliverability, as in your emails were burned, your domains are off, and so on. And I suggest you do your own research there. There's a lot more than that to get into. That generally covers distribution, I hope. So at least, and you can put any questions in the comments. All these platforms are free. So to get started, you can go to IngramSpark.com, KDP.amazon.com, ACX, and then myidentifiers.com, which is Bowker for the ISBNs. I also wanted to create this checklist here. I will move my video so you can see. This is generally just the things you need to do if you want to publish and distribute, and also just produce a book, that whole process in the way that I have detailed over the last hour or so, that ranges from the cover to the interior to the marketing, A+ content, and then also just setting up your accounts, writing the description, just all those little things that you need to do to get a book to a point where you created it and it's out there in the world. However, we've now covered ideation, production, and distribution. Unfortunately, that was the easy part. And the hard part here is actually making this book sell and making money from it. The way I view this, especially in self-publishing, but just in publishing as a whole as well, is that a quality book that people like is kind of the lower bound nowadays. It's the requirement. And by that, I mean, publishing is such a large industry and there are so many great books out there and people publishing great books that just to have a good book is what it takes to get your foot in the door and to play on the level of everyone else. If you have a bad book, you're screwed from day one, right? So you need a good book, but then what sets books apart is this a really good book? Is this an extra good book? There's no really quality spectrum there, assuming that at least your book is good. What determines how well it does is the marketing and the sales and the brand element of it. I think this image describes that well. If you have a bad book with good marketing, and you heard what I just said about, good books versus bad books, that will 80 times out of 100 beat a good book that has bad marketing. And that's just how important marketing is in the self-publishing space. So, with that being said, that was key number 4. We'll now shift into marketing. Marketing is simple in terms of the things that you can do. It is very complex in how to do those things well. So I think that's generally the way to approach it here. There are two general delineations as far as marketing for books goes. There's organic marketing, which means you're not paying for it up front. So that's, hey, your book is ranking on Amazon, so people search for it and buy it. That's your website on Google doing well and people searching for it, word of mouth, referrals, your Instagram, your Facebook post, and so on. And then paid marketing, which is your pay-per-click or PPC ads. So that's Facebook ads, Google ads. We'll cover that in a bit. Paying to be on email newsletters, paying to have your book on a bus or on Goodreads, and then also just say partnerships with influencers. And the two general goals with all types of marketing for books that you're aiming for is reviews and then sales of the book. A third accessory item there is information of your customers, because then you can, sell them more books or other products later down the line. If we think about the importance, the relative importance there, and I'll cover this in a minute, but reviews are really important up front. And then once you have a certain amount of reviews, they don't really matter anymore. So you get your reviews, that's important through organic or paid advertising and marketing and sales. And then you shift into, hey, I want to make money from this and I want to get it out there, or some relationship between those two overarching goals. That is basically what I just said, but in the short term, so within, say, 60, 90 days of your book launching, you want at least 80 reviews. And I believe there were studies or polls right on this, but once you hit roughly the 80 review mark, assuming those are good reviews, so generally over 4.3, 4.4, 4.5 out of 5 stars, you don't really need to care about reviews anymore. Like, that's enough for people to trust you. If you have 2 reviews, if you have 30 reviews, then there's going to be some decreased conversion rate on that book sales page because of your lack of reviews. Also, if your reviews are under just 4.0 stars, like it's 3.8 out of 5, you're screwed. And again, that comes back to the good book versus bad book dichotomy. Good books are the determinants, and people will review very quickly and tell everyone else if a book is bad, and that'll just kill your whole market there, at least especially on platforms like Amazon, where reviews are very focal to those pages. In addition to those reviews, within the first 90 days of the book launching, you really want to just get the word out. You just want bulk sales so that the algorithms, especially the Amazon algorithm, says, hey, this is a good book. I should show it to more people and I should rank it higher. And then also just getting the word out so that people feel like, hey, I heard about this from this person and I saw it on this podcast and so on. And then long term, right? And the short term metrics or goals really just feed into the long term ones. Is you want to make money. You want to make money all the time. And then you want that to be consistent and algorithmic and predictable. So you want to be consistently profitable. And one way to do that is through the notion of a sales funnel, which I'll describe here in a bit, and which is something that I think most self-publishers don't do, and which does really hurt them over the long run. So the first kind of infrastructure marketing setup subject I want to touch on is a website. I highly recommend you set up a website and one that just looks good, because first, it's not that hard to do. B, it's super cheap to do, and C, it's great for a lot of reasons. And like I say, you can get information from your customers on your website, like their email, feedback, and so on. That information becomes super valuable when you think about other aspects of marketing. So creating an email list that you notify about every book that you publish and things of that sort. You can also run ads to sales pages on the website to have more control over that, to sell yourself. And you can do things like I say, a newsletter to keep people kind of in the loop about what you're doing. And that absolute baseline is just make sure you can collect emails from people who see your website in a book. Let's say at the end, you're like, hey, you can get a free book if you join my newsletter. They go to your website, give them or give you their email, and then you have their information. You can target them again, and they get, say, their free book. WordPress is by default the site to do that on. I really don't recommend Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, those kind of sites. If you use some setup like Elementor and a default theme that you import on WordPress, you're going to have no trouble at all doing that. Hostinger is also a very good provider for WordPress hosting and kind of also a website builder there. So you can see right here, you can get a full free domain in hosting and a website built for you with Hostingers like Website Builder and AI features and so on for less than $3 a month, right? That's a pretty good deal. There are other providers that do it well. Hostinger isn't the only one. That's just one that I've built a lot of my websites with. And then a free alternative, if you don't want to spend money, and also just a much simpler one, is Land. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, but I'll Google this here. They're very good at just very specific landing pages that convert, and they also have a lot of templates to help you do that. So if you want just one page for your website to collect emails, then you can do it that way. Just one page ultimately will do worse SEO wise versus something like Hostinger and building a whole website that has an about you page and book pages and so on. Then if we think about the timeline, so kind of the way in which you should do things marketing wise, you need to do a lot of grunt work initially before you actually launch. So that's prepping ad campaigns. It's prepping the copy. So like the ad text. It's the review system that I'll talk about in a second, upsells, like all that kind of work. And then within the first few months of launching, that's when you're going to want to run a lot of ads and start those ads. It's when you want to get a whole lot of reviews, and that you really have to get the reviews within the first few weeks of the book being launched for it to just do well and really rank well in the algorithms. And then you can also run discount campaigns, which I will touch on here in a minute. And then you can see on the bottom right here, after that 30, 60, 90 day point, once the book has really been launched, that's when you want to really focus and shift from ads that focus on just bulk sales and getting a lot of orders and copies out there, to then getting that ACoS or that return down. ACoS is advertising cost of sales, kind of like ROI in a sense. So just really focusing on profitability, and then figuring out sales funnels, which I'll also touch on in a minute, that actually make you profit instead of just sales, and then scaling those up hopefully over time. Now, reviews are a really big topic of discussion within the self-publishing space because they are hard to get. There are also a lot of people try and cheat that system and get fake reviews, and a lot of people have different just little platforms or a person that they know, or just a whole a different system to do it. So what I want to generally emphasize is that if your book is bad, you will get and it sells, you will get bad reviews because those reviews reflect the actual innate implicit quality of the book. And even if you buy fake reviews, if you have a bunch of like 5-star reviews that obviously look just fake because the people writing them didn't speak English, or they're not verified purchases, and then you have a bunch of 1-star reviews that start coming in, or 2-star, people are going to see it through that really quickly. It just frankly doesn't work, and there's so much risk there, because if you're just straight up buying fake reviews, then you're violating terms of service on every platform. Eventually something's going to happen, something will go wrong, and you just really don't want to be in that situation. There are some sites where it's honest review for review, kind of transactional type deals that are legitimate. The problem there is that it's hard to scale those, and it's hard to get consistent reviews. So if you want to get 100 reviews in 2 weeks legitimately, it's really hard to do that through those platforms. If you do want to just drip like one a week for a few months, you can use those, again, legitimate ones. I also want to emphasize there's a difference between verified purchase reviews and then just standard reviews on Amazon, at least. If you buy a product and then review it on Amazon, it's a verified purchase review. If you didn't buy it and just leave a review, but you have an account, then it just shows up without that tag. So if you also buy just reviews and the people didn't buy the product, that's also, people see straight through that nowadays. Organically speaking, the amount of reviews you get varies, but generally somewhere in the range of per every 30 to 100 organic sales that you get, you're going to get 1 review. So that does build up over time, but that's also the same problem as these kind of legitimate review for review platforms, which is, hey, if you want 100 reviews or 80 reviews in a few weeks or a month, right when you launch, you're going to have a really difficult time doing that organically. You'd need to sell many thousands of books. So there's a few. I don't view this as a problem into perpetuity if you set the business up right and you publish correctly. And by that I mean, if you build a brand around yourself and you build up an audience that follows you, you have a newsletter, people that just follow you for your writing or follow the brand or the book series for its writing and for its content, that's what should drive reviews. For example, if you put a lot of ad spend into a book over the course of a few years and you build up 12,000 sales and 800 people joined your newsletter on your website or just submitted their email in return for like a free chapter of a book or an add-on, which is a great way to drive people to that website. You can then, when you publish your next book, email them and say, hey guys, I'm discounting my ebook to 99 cents for a week or for 5 days. I would really appreciate if you left an honest review. It helps me out a lot, and I know you liked the last book. And if you do it and you send me a screenshot, I don't know, you cannot technically bribe people, that bribes terms of service, but you can figure something out there. If you do something like that, then those 800 people can give you your 80 reviews on that book, right? If say 10% convert. So there's a lot of ways to do this. Long term, it's that initial kind of startup problem that is the difficulty there. So with that being said, if you don't have funds to spend on the system I'm about to describe, that's what I think is the best to get you a lot of reviews legitimately and set you up to essentially bring that cost down to zero over time. Just use friends and family to get some reviews in there. And then you can use these legitimate and make sure they abide by guidelines and there's honest reviews and so on. And just do that for your first few books and, do your best there, and you won't have to spend any money doing it. Um, my one note on the review platforms is that the major kind of guidelines you have to follow when you think about the legality of reviews is that first, they have to be honest. You can't force someone to leave, say, a 5-star review. And then second, you can't pay someone directly to leave a review. You can't bribe them to leave a review. You can just ask them. So if you meet those two requirements, there's some other little stuff as well. Those are the two big ones. Then your reviews will be legitimate. So look for platforms or just review groups that are like that, where people don't have to leave reviews and they aren't paid to, and they can be honest. If they want to leave a 1-star review, they will leave a 1-star review. Now, here is my big review system. This is not my idea originally. It's from a guy named Will, that I've also just iterated upon. So kudos to him. And this is the system that I think is the best for, again, a relatively little amount of money to get you a lot of reviews very quickly that meet all the platform requirements. And then also one that you can just reuse the people essentially to get that cost down. So the first step there is to run Facebook ads or Instagram ads as well, that are essentially saying, hey, here's a free book. So I wrote some of that text down there in the bottom left. So we're looking for early readers. Download your book for free now. And if you run that, some amount of people are going to say, hey, yeah, I want to read this book for free. I want to be an early reader. They'll give you their email and their name via, say, a built-in messenger or like Facebook form. You can also target interest and kind of the audience that you want to those ads to reach and to download the book. Then once people either gave you their email or you have chats set up in Messenger, then you can send them the manuscript to the book. So they read the book, right? And then once that book actually launches in a week or two, you can message them and say, hey, you were an early reviewer. I really appreciate your feedback. I would appreciate it. You don't have to, but I would appreciate if you went to this link that I just sent you and leave an honest review. That's perfectly legitimate. You're allowed to do that. That's basically just asking someone to leave a review, and an honest one at that, if they want to, because it would help you out. And a good amount of people will, and I've generally found that you can see the cost there, and I've run this over probably 10 to 20 books, so nothing crazy, but a good amount there. Is that the net cost will be somewhere between, the lowest I've seen is $5, anything over 25, you don't really want to do it. So somewhere between $5 and $25 per review that you pay. So you pay $1,000, you're getting, roughly your 80 reviews done right there. And then what you can do, and this is critical, is you have that list now and they're interested in a certain type of book. That may be like 80 people that left a review. So all you do is for the next book is you then contact those people again and you're like, hey, I have another book. Can you read it? I'll give it to you for free. And I'd appreciate if you also left an honest review. And those people are likely to, since they already did for one book. And then that way, again, you don't have to spend $1,000 on every book. You can just kind of bump up the numbers if you want to, but really you just return to this core group that likes your brand and actually likes your book. Your multiple books. The one difficulty there is that if people do it like this, then they're not going to be verified reviews, right? They're just going to be like unverified reviews. Now that is not a inherently like disqualifying factor. But what you can do to counteract that is just discount the book, like the ebook, and you can do this on KDP as kind of discount promotion under the marketplace tab in kdp.amazon.com, is you can drop the book to 99 cents and then you ask those same people, hey, since I gave this to you for free, you don't have to, but I would appreciate if you bought this on Amazon and then left a review, right? So don't force anyone. Don't force them to leave a good review. Just ask them to do it in this way. If they want to, they will. And then it's really just a matter of conversions. Like, do 50% of people do it, to 80%, to 20%. And also generally, if people like the book, they're much more likely through this system to leave a review there. So that's the system. You can go to facebook.com/business/ads to get started with that. Now, I want to back up a second. What I'm going to get into next is the ad system that I recommend. And advertising digitally, if you haven't done it before, there's a few big kind of providers. So there's Amazon ads, Facebook ads, Google ads, YouTube, TikTok ads, Snapchat as well, where you can set up your own portal and then you can kind of manage ads through that. So every ad you see on every site you visit is on the back end someone who's just setting up ads just like you can, right? And everyone uses the same tools. There's no like I don't know, corporate portal or something where they're doing it in a different way. So this is the basic ad system. I'm going to cover a basic system and then an advanced system. Basic ad system is basically just directly advertise the book to try to get sales. There's a few platforms to do this on. Generally, everyone only uses Amazon ads because it's super easy to track sales. Like you see in your ad portal, hey, this is my spend, this is my sales, this is my return. But you can also work through other platforms like Google Ads, which includes YouTube, Meta Ads, which constitutes Facebook and Instagram, and then also potentially Snapchat and TikTok there. There's a few ways to go about the actual campaign setup. Generally on especially Google, but also the Meta Suite, what I recommend is split testing. First, initially, just automatic targeting or performance max campaigns, which is kind of letting the quote unquote AI, really just the targeting system of those platforms, try and optimize them for you. So you can just, you put your keywords in, you put your images in, and it will figure out what sells best, where to list those ads, and who to advertise to. Beyond that, there's search campaigns, which are just targeting keywords so if someone types in, how to start a dog walking business on Google or Amazon, your book can show up under that. That's another category or kind of campaign type that you can set up there. And then the third big one here is a video campaign. If you can make great videos that people engage with, this is 100% your time to shine. And you can make, like a 60-second ad that you pump out onto YouTube through Google Ads. And then that can really do well for books. Again, it just depends on, well, how good is the video? And it's hard to brute force that if you don't have a background and just, again, making content that people engage with. There's also customer match lists or audience segments or kind of your own data segments across these different ad platforms. They go by slightly different names. They work on every platform except Amazon ads. I want to clarify. And what that does is it takes a list of your current customers or people, and either it directly targets those people or it figures out which type of people are likely to like your book given that list of existing readers or customers. So if you have 1,000 people in a newsletter and you have their email and their name, you just upload that into Google, and Google goes and either retargets those people, so targets them again, even though they already know about a book of yours. Maybe you target a different book at them because also they know of your brand, so the ad will stand out. Or you use that data to figure out, really for Google or Amazon, or well, not Amazon, but Meta or Google, to figure out who is likely, who they predict will engage best with those ads and ultimately buy the book. As far as copy goes, same thing as the metadata. Just keep it snappy, keep it short, and really get the point across for the book. I may do another video where I do a deep dive into Amazon ads and like my actual, few of my dashboards and kind of results there. So you can see that, or at least client dashboards. So let me know if you do want to see that. Otherwise, there are plenty of videos that go over the, how to set up Amazon ads for KDP and so on. Then this is going more into detail though on Amazon ads while we're on the subject. Because again, this is the advertising platform that most self-publishers just do all their PPC or pay-per-click advertising through. So with Amazon ads, you can see that ACOS, ACOS there. There are a bunch of different numbers that are kind of the return you get on ads. So there's your literal return on ad spend, or ROAS, ROAS, that's used on say Google Ads and a lot of platforms. There's also ACOS, which is advertising cost of sales. Generally, you can think of it as if you spend $100 on ads and you get $100 in sales or revenue, that's 100% ACOS. If your ACOS is 20%, then that means you're spending $1 on ads, you get $5 in revenue, and vice versa. So the lower that number is, the better. Um, you can see with these two campaigns here, this top one is spending $20 a day and getting $16 in sales a day. Well, that's bad, or at least on that specific day. That isn't the daily spend. That's bad. That's 130% ACOS. That means you're losing money. Then this bottom little campaign here is spending $4 and getting $23 in sales or in revenue. That's great. That's sub 20% ACOS. That's turning $1 in ad spend into $5 in revenue. What's key here is that your ACOS is not your actual bottom line return, because it's a measure of sales, not of your profit. So let's say your profit margins, or let's just say you're selling your book for $23. So let's say this is one sale off $4 in spend, and you make $8 in profit off your $23 book. In that case, your actual return is spend $4.50, get $8 in profit, plus the accessory yield of, hey, someone bought the book, word of mouth, just more sales, better ranking, and so on. So your actual bottom line for that ad would be roughly a 2x return, right? Like a 50% in a sense profit. Now, most books are somewhere in the range of 30 to 40% royalty. That ranges from like 10% to 50+%. So really you need that like sub 30-40% ACOS for it to actually be directly profitable. If it's not directly profitable, or it's just break even, that's okay, since you still, again, get more exposure for the book through, say, break even ads. But you do really want these to be just directly profitable. And that's how you make money all the time. And it's legitimately printing money for you, instead of just, oh, I'm losing money on ads, but I think orders and sales are going up. Amazon breaks down into automatic targeting, which is when Amazon figures out or predicts who's going to buy your book for you and then just shows the ads to those people. There's manual targeting, which is where you choose the keywords, the categories, or the products that the campaign targets. Then there's the keywords themselves, which either Amazon can recommend, and they can recommend bids as well, or you can enter your own list of things you think people are searching who would want to buy your book. And then again, there's categories and products. So you can get your book to show up in as a sponsored kind of little listing there, directly under the actual like comparable products or accessory products on, say, Amazon, or you can target, say, the category of for example, finance books on Amazon. And then you have to test the custom kind of headline or description that you have on ads as well. You can either, with Amazon ads, set ads to just reference the book, or to have a little like blurb that's like 2 sentences that kind of sell the book that you can put in the ad. So my general approach across all of those different kind of ways of approaching or kind of aspects of these ads is to just split test all of it and let the market tell me what actually works, and then just scale that campaign up. So you can see right here, there's 2 books being advertised here. There's an Arabic like language related book and a Japanese related language book. The way I've titled these is that SP stands for sponsored product. So I'm advertising one product. And then I have MT, and then I have AT. So AT is automatic targeting. MT is manual targeting. So I'm split testing essentially. I'm saying, hey, is automatic targeting getting me a better ACOS, or is manual targeting getting me a better ACOS? And then, there's campaigns for different books. And then I have CS here, which stands for copy set, which is essentially the blurb. So what I'm doing here, say across these 2 campaigns right here, so sponsored product, manual targeting, Japanese, a copy set 3, and then copy set 4, and then K stands for keyword, is I'm split testing quite literally. Everything is the same except the blurb that I'm using. So which blurb converts better and drives a lower return? And then once I know that, after spending just $8 a day on it, after for say a week or 2, and it won't actually spend up to $8 a day, it may spend say $2 a day. You do rarely with Amazon ads actually meet the kind of campaign budget there. You'll see that if you start. Is that I'll figure out which blurb converts better, and then I can take that data and plug it into my other better performing campaigns. So in that way, you want to, again, very literally split test across these different campaign types and approaches and strategies. And then I have K for keyword. I also have C or P for categories and products. So I usually target a combination of categories and and products in addition to keyword campaigns. So then once you figure out what works better, then you keep iterating, you keep optimizing with a lot of campaigns, a lot of split tests, and then that's how you drive your ACOs from 100% plus down to your sub 20% like directly profitable range. And I say that right here, Amazon ads especially are an iteration and an optimization game. So the way to not do it and the way to lose money is to set up one campaign and to never think about it again. The way to actually directly create this money printer of an ad machine, and this applies to any ads, but especially self-publishing as well, since it is relatively saturated, saturated depending on the type of book that you publish. I'll append to that statement. Is that you have to test everything, really figure out what works, and then hone in on that over time to drive the cost down. And that is how you do Amazon ads. Before I cover that advanced system, there are other ad platforms again that I've referenced them here. So Google Ads, Meta, Snapchat, TikTok, that all of different kind of formats, different ways of doing things. There's tons of videos on that on YouTube and other platforms. Generally, I'd say just do focus on that notion of you have to put an effort to make these work, and you have to test a lot of things to let the market tell you what will work. And if you do that on nearly any platform, you will be comparatively successful, although the book itself, the category, the market can often determine the success of the ad, not just your strategy and going about it. That was the basic ad system. Now, the advanced ad system, which is right here, looks really complicated. I apologize for all the arrows, but I'm going to break it down here. And the goal here is that it is relatively hard to scale up and make a lot of money just by directly running ads to books, because you're making a few bucks a book. You're going to cap out in like the prime audience that's going to receive those ads. You can make good money doing that, especially on a lot of books. You're not going to make an incredible life-changing amount of money. So here is the much more advanced paid ad system that incorporates a cohesive kind of sales funnel approach, and also just other info products. And an info product is like an ebook, a course, checklists, any kind of that text related product. So ignore the arrows for a second. The core concept here is you're going to incorporate upsells to subsidize ad cost. So going back to this page, if we're spending $20 to generate 16 in sales, we're losing money there. Now, if we were spending $2,000 a day or a week, whatever it may be, to generate, say, 100 orders a week or 500 orders a week, we may be losing money there. But if some of those people go and buy something else that's more expensive, that delivers value to them, then you're actually profitable, which means you can take that money, you can drive it back into ad spend to scale up spend to sell more books. So like I say here again, you're essentially subsidizing the cost of the ads through other products that tie into the book that are more expensive and higher margin that make you more money. Now that approach is focused on selling more copies of the book, so like driving ad spend back into the sales funnel or the top of funnel ads. An alternative approach is just, run it like that and make a lot of money. And the people who make a lot of money use oftentimes a system like this, and also just the brands that make a lot of money, especially just self-published brands and individuals. So all of this starts with ads that do two things. First, you have ads that are focused around getting the information of someone who could be interested in the book. That's one type of ad. And then you have another type of ad that just drives straight to the sales page, say on Amazon or Target, but most likely Amazon. Could be your website, but most likely Amazon of your book. Now you want to grab and get those emails or convince someone to give you their email through some sort of what's called a lead hook. So that's something that kind of hooks or grabs people, grabs their attention or their interest. So that can be a free chapter of a book, a checklist, an ebook, a resource, a a SaaS tool, a full-on video course, just whatever that may be. And then also in your book itself, you should reference consistently, hey, go to my website and I'll give you a free add-on chapter or a free tool. And that drives people back toward that website to give them the email. Then once people have given you their email and have gotten their free thing, you're going to send them a sequence of emails, which you write in advance and you send to everyone, where you give them lots of more free value. And you solidify your brand based on whatever the book was or the series was that they kind of signed up through. Then at some point you need it. Well, just going back a step here, you need a variety of products that relate to the book, that are like a more valuable version of whatever the pitch is for the nonfiction book that people would pay for. So for example, and I'll show you a system in a second here that's that, but let's use the dog walking business and book once again as an example. So let's say your book is, hey, here's how you start a dog walking business. Well, you may have on your website a video course that goes through, hey, here's the exact scripts and ads that I use to blow this business up on Nextdoor advertising or Facebook Marketplace advertising, for example. Here's the infrastructure on how you hire people. Here's like the done for you approach. And that may be like a, $800 like product that people can pay for. And then you may have a consulting that's done for you where you like meet on you excuse me, I'm not speaking well here, but you go on a Zoom with them once per week and you help them kind of build this business with them virtually. And you might charge, say, $6,000 for that over the course of 6 months. And the people who are interested in the book, who read like, hey, here's how you start a dog walking business, will be interested in these add-on products that are much more expensive. So that what you want to do, and you want to wean into these emails over time, and you also want to incorporate into the book itself at some point, is then those products which are going to list or advertise essentially on what's called squeeze or like sales pages. So you're going to have basically some sort of $550 to $500 product, and then a much more expensive, like $2,000 to $15,000 product. You can go more expensive, but generally depends on the niche and the type of book. You want to stick in that range, and you can be creative. This is not just a finance or business book thing. If it's, say, knitting, right? You can have a here's how to knit these 5 things course or like ebook for $200, just whatever it may be. So you're going to use that email and those people who are coming to your website to drive people toward the pages where you advertise those products. You're going to sell some amount of those, ideally. That will generate a lot of profit. And then you just take that profit and you drive it right back into those ads over there. You can also just directly, advertise the upsells. That's just usually harder. And a book is actually a really functionally productive way of figuring out who could potentially be interested in a more expensive product and then convincing them to buy it. Because once someone reads the book, they're much more likely to commit a few $1,000s to, the more expensive product, whereas ads directly targeting those products wouldn't, do well initially. You also, through this system, will get a big list of emails and people that are interested in your, say, your book or your product. You can plug those back into ad systems as customer match lists, which means, like I spoke of a few minutes ago, Google or Facebook is going to target those people again for you, or people like them. And then you can go and target them with either other books, the same book if they didn't buy it, upsells, and so on, because those people are familiar with you. They know your brand. They're much more likely to sell. So that generally is how you do it. That's the more advanced system there, where you can just scale ads in a much faster way through these upsells essentially. And what I do want to emphasize here is that it doesn't have to be like 100 people a month buy your $2,000 thing, right? It can be 1 in 200 people buy your $4,000, done for you consulting service. And just that $4,000 of nearly pure margin, if you can relatively automate the delivery or it doesn't take too much of your time there, that $4,000 just subsidized like, $20,000 in ad spend that was 20% away from break even. So it does help you scale both sides of that, even if a very, relatively speaking, small amount of people convert to those other products. Since again, you're functionally subsidizing the ad cost, you're not like really trying to drive people or make an incredible amount of money directly through those upsells or products. Now, this guy here is William Brown. I spoke to him briefly about a book that he put out. He also just wrote this and published it, self-published it a few months ago. He is, well, just generally his system with this book is a masterclass in exactly what I just showed you here, or at least a very similar process. I don't know if he thinks of it like this. So he wrote a book, and I'll show you this now, called How to 10 Million. Here, let me pull up the book itself. So How to 10 Million, Sell Your Knowledge and Make Millions of Bucks. Are you ready to make $10 million? Here's how you do it, and so on. So he has a whole brand in this. He actually did it. He made well over $10 million doing what he's selling in this book. He used his audience on social media to get, well over 100 reviews pretty quickly. And then he built this whole system around the book. That is what actually makes the money, not the book directly itself, like the $18 paperback, the $10 Kindle book. So you can see howto10million.com/book has this whole sales or squeaks page. So it's here's how anyone, regardless of skills, can build, grow, and exit a 7-figure lifestyle education business online. And then he has a sales video. He has now available for instant digital download, $12, and then it's a bunch of resources relating to the book and a whole How to 10 Million system. So you can see you can download the ebook for like $12. You can do it that way, but then within the book and within the system that he's promoting here, you can then buy a more expensive product that he advertises. And he put this on Instagram as well, and it's like $200 to $300, and it's more specifics about. And you can see how lengthy this sales page is. Like a lot of testimonials. This is serious stuff, right? So again, he knows what he's doing. This is what he does professionally. Yours does not have to look like this. But essentially, he's driving people toward the ebook. Then he's upselling them in the book and through pages and ads that drive to this page and so on, to more expensive, like $300 products. And then his core business is consulting, where he charges, it varies widely, but anywhere from $2,000-$3,000 a month up to $8,000+ per month to either do a done for you type system or just as a monthly retainer. So his book essentially becomes like the lead hook, or the thing that gets people in the door, that he then just builds a system around that actually makes the money on the back end and lets him then go and put more money into just really scaling the book and getting the book out there. So I don't know how much money he's made, but he's done that really well. And I'm sure he's made a lot of money and also just gotten a lot of exposure for the book in that way. And there are plenty of other people who, do it in similar ways and make a lot of money doing it that you just haven't heard of because they don't attach their face to it. The fifth key, shifting or moving on from advertising, is build a brand. And if you build a brand once, people will come back. And that drives the advertising marketing costs down, because now you don't have to invest in reviews. You get solid base of sales initially. If you create like a website and a newsletter and a brand that people come back to and look for and identify with, or a series or an author, then that's really long-term how you make really, really good money and also just scale up like the impact and the reach of your books doing this. And I think inside of your books is a great underutilized way to do this. So you can, every 30 pages reference like, hey, if you want to learn more, here's a free thing on my website where you can go, check it out. And really just by providing free value, by appealing to what people actually want. And also, again, just by having a good book, good free offers, good info products, just by really doing what you're saying that you're going to do, that's how you build a brand long-term, make a lot of money, do really well, get a lot of reach. So we've now covered ideation, production, distribution, and marketing. The fifth, and this is somewhat less important, but also just more kind of generalized as to the macro approach that you're taking, is the exit. And by that, I mean the exit of the business. There's a few ways to go about this. You can just own these businesses forever. That's perfectly fine. And there's two ways to do this. The first, going under the notion of, hey, I want to just own this forever and I don't want to exit, is just the cash cow, which is like the lifestyle business. These businesses, self-publishing generally, are they do stick around for a while. Good books do sell for a long time, right? So this is an example of a very bad graph, so I apologize in that regard. But this is roughly the actual sales timeline of some of the early books that I put out, 4 or 5 years ago that were good books that sold well. So, and this was organic as well. These were a few books when I used to just not do any ads because I didn't know how to. So in year 1, there's a big jump. Year 2 is even better than year 1. Year 3 is when organically that starts to crater, and that's book specific. But year 3, it really goes down. Year 4, year 5, coming back up, and this should either stay around this scale in terms of sales and revenue and profit, or go down slightly. But also that right there, that's 5 years after you publish the product, and this at least was organically, right? So good books that people like will sell for a long time, even self-published ones. Good systems, right? So ads that have been set up that are profitable, right? Solid upsells and info products, those will stick around for a really long time, for forever, for as long as you're running them. So if you just want to make your $1,000, $10,000 a month, whatever the number may be per month, relatively passively, and by that I mean just the effort is over allocated to the initial period when you write the books, start the business, start the ads, etc. Do it. Make a lot of money doing it, and life is good. You don't need to do any kind of exit thing. There's a lot of other people who may just want upfront cash, and there are a lot of ways to do that. Generally, in the self-publishing space, if you have a good business that's making money, that's been around for a while, you can sell it roughly somewhere between a 4 and an 8x revenue multiple. That does vary. I've seen ones go for 10, 12, 14x revenue, but that's rare, and really, again, that 4 to 8x range is normal. So what that means is, if you're making $100,000 a year from your business, then you can sell it for somewhere between $400,000 and $800,000. If you're making $1 million a year, you sell it for $4 to $8 million there. Now, what determines that multiple, which is really just how much people are willing to pay for it, given the amount of revenue that it's doing, is, like I said, first the account history. So how long it's been around, how many books you have, organic sales versus paid sales and the return on ads there, the growth. So if your business is, trending downward, you're going to get a much lower multiple, because that reflects, the multiple essentially reflects the return people think they can get. Like 8x multiple for someone buying one of these is like a 12% a year return that they see, top line as well, not even like, after taxes and so on. So there's a whole bunch of basically metrics that play into it. The bottom line is, if you have a strong business that's making money, that's growing, you'll get more money for it, as logic goes. If it's a bad business, if there's fake reviews, if there's terminations, if there's sketchy things, you're going to get a much lower multiple, or you just won't be able to sell it at all. One thing I do want to note is just the tax implications here. So this depends on a whole lot of things, right? Like which country you're in, which part of a country you're in, how much money you make, what the sale price is. But generally, right, if you say live in California in the US and you have a business making $10,000 a month, so $120 a year, and you sell it at 6x, so for $720,000, and you make $120 a year through your day job, right, you're going to take 30, 40, 50% out of that 720, and that 720 just became like 350. So you do really need to consider just how that applies to you. If it's a really big sale, like just move somewhere where you can save like 10%, right? Because that could mean a lot, or really impact you if this is, your nest egg, your retirement fund, or so on. There's a few marketplaces to materially sell these businesses. So I want to give shout outs to 2 of those. The first is Empire Flippers. They are somewhat of a vetted marketplace here. So you can see listings just like this for all types of online businesses. I won't sign in here. I will just look so you can see some actual KDP businesses being sold. This right here, this is a $500,000 business making $18,000 a month in net profit. This is selling at a 25x monthly multiple, right? Which is just over a 2-year actual multiple. And look at that. The profit and the revenue is growing by 5 to 10x per year. The reason this is probably selling for so little comparatively, like 2x annual revenue, which is a 50% return if that holds per year for anyone who buys it, which is really, really, really good, is that it's new, right? If profit is up 10x in the last 12 months, then it was barely making any money last year, which means there's an element of risk there if it's only been around for that amount of time. But here again, 400,000, 11,000 in profit, selling for a 3x multiple. These are all romance, but you see plenty of other businesses here. And these are all people making 100,000, 500,000, million plus dollars off of their, KDP, Amazon KDP, or just self-publishing accounts. So you 100% can sell businesses this way. Now, the other big one or marketplace here is flippa.com. They are like Empire Marketplace. They don't vet. They vet some of them. They don't vet all of the listings on their platform, which makes it slightly riskier. There also are less KDP listings on here, but even here you can see, a KDP account selling for $90,000 that makes $4,000 a month. KDP, here you go, like KDP $600,000 making $22,000 a month. And it just goes on. And I've seen, especially on Empire Flippers, I think a $12 million account was the highest I ever saw. So that's someone who's making like generational wealth and money through these, self-publishing business. So you have the links there. If you ever want to exit, you can just go to those platforms. And once again, this is feasible. A lot of people do it. They do it every day. Just be very careful about transferring accounts and make sure you can successfully make that transfer in a way that, say, Amazon or Ingram approves of. That is the only word of warning that I want to initiate there. We've now covered the main kind of life cycle categories that I spoke of. There are a few other last notes I want to detail here. So that's how to hire and scale, how to actually buy and roll up these businesses, the legal setup, a hack I've found to guarantee yourself a bestseller status, and then a whole list of what not to do. So I suggest you stick around. I know this video has been going on for a while, but these things are really important, and we should wrap this up fairly soon. Now, the first note here is the legal aspect of it. Amazon is notorious, and unfortunately in the self-publishing space, for basically shutting a lot of people down for no reason, right? I told you that story earlier, I believe, of the account owners who were shut down just because they were associated with someone whose account got shut down, as in for basically no reason. I've lost a lot of money this way. It's not a good experience. Generally, just be very careful who you give access or who you let into your Kindle direct publishing account. And then also just keep in mind that if you publish with Kindle Select, if you use Amazon's ISBN, same with Ingram as well, they own you. You have to publish, with them. That's good in some ways, and you still need to list on, for example, Amazon because of just the distribution and reach that they give you. And this is kind of what I said about a monopoly, right? Like they have monopoly power here, unfortunately. But you still have to list on them because of the reach and the sales that they'll get you. Now, if your account does get suspended and you don't know why and you don't think it was valid, let me know. Like, just leave a comment on one of my videos, find my email, shoot me an email, and I will connect you with a lawyer that specializes in exactly those type of cases. I hope that doesn't happen, but if it does, again, just contact me. Then again, in a legal sense, I do recommend copywriting those books and then also just set up an LLC. Um, if you're broke, this is how you want to start to make money online in addition to a job. Then don't set up an LLC or copyright your books. But once you have some money, or if you're willing to invest a little bit in it, then an LLC annual fees range depending on where you are in the U.S. from like $300 to $800 a year as a minimum tax. And you guys run it as a pass-through entity or a single member LLC. It's really not that complex. There's also companies, I find this so funny, that charge like 100 or 500 or like several $1,000s to set up an LLC for you. You find your Secretary of State, you submit 2 pieces of paper and you're done. So just do not pay a ridiculous amount of money for someone to do this for you. If you want to set up an LLC, and the same goes for copywriting books, just do it yourself, watch a video, you'll be fine. It's not that hard. Okay, so moving on here, something that we didn't explore prior in the distribution section is the idea of translating your own books in a manner that differs from partnering with a foreign agency or publisher to translate that content for you. The central idea here is that of leverage, and it assumes that, hey, if a book is popular in one language and to one audience in that language, well, it reasonably is popular or could be popular to other languages, or to other audiences in other languages. So as opposed to having to go and create, say, 10 really good books that you just advertise in English, you create one really good book that you go and you advertise and you sell in, say, 10 different languages. And when you think about the multiple through that's enabled through different formats and translations, just in terms of the pure amount of material that you can get out there, even though it's really more about sales and marketing in terms of performance, you can get, say, 4 formats times 10 translations. You're talking about 40 different books out there, and that's just reps in a sense, where some books will do better organically, some won't. And while it's about marketing and sales, especially if you're starting from zero, just by putting those reps in, books will do well organically, and net you will make more. That doesn't ignore the quality requirement that's implicit to translations beyond just obviously all self-published books as a whole. But again, the idea here is really just, okay, take winning material that won in English, that's popular in English, where your ads are profitable, your sales funnel is profitable in English, and then just go global with that. If you can't find publishers to translate that for you internationally, or just as an alternative to that approach. And you can also just try both and see what works well for you. There are generally 3 ways that you can translate your own material. First is just a manual translation, either that you do yourself if you speak multiple languages, or through hiring a professional translator. Hiring a translator really is you get what you pay for, in a similar manner to ghostwriters. You can pay $100 or a few $100 for someone to review and to quote unquote translate a 80,000 word document, and I can guarantee that they're just doing that with AI or with any number of translation tools out there. Alternatively, you can also pay $40,000 or $100,000 for a proper translation into other languages, and you'll get a really good one. The alternative to doing it manually, and this is kind of the lens that I want you to view the manual translation through, is automatic translation through a number of tools that are out there. Now, I had an interesting experience with translating with Word a few years ago, where I had a book of mine that had done well in English that I wanted to translate into Spanish, German, and French. And there were people staying with me at the time, and among their family, they happened to speak Spanish and French and German. So I had these 3 translations of this book that I just auto-translated in Word. And I sent them these documents, or I showed it to them, and I was like, hey guys, can you just read through this and tell me what you think of the quality, right? They read that whole thing and they were like, hey, no, this is a perfectly good translation, right? Like, there were a few little things here and there where I was like, that's Word sentence structure is kind of strange, but as a whole, they found those to be of perfectly standard, book quality, translations. So that has imprinted on me since, kind of especially since that was a few years ago, and these tools are a lot better now. the value and the reach that you can get just by translating on Word, as in these books will turn out fine if you just translate them through Word. That's just my experience. I don't know if that applies to all languages because I haven't tested this with readers of, say, all or more than, say, by this point, about a half dozen languages. But test this for yourself if you know someone that speaks a language that you could publish in. So the way to do that, just when you have a Word document or the interior for your book in English, you just go to Tools, Translate, and then Translate Whole Document after picking the language that you want to translate into. That's it. You do that, you're done, and it translates the whole thing in, say, like 8 seconds or something. Now, arguably, the best approach here is a combination of the two, right? Because this is the standard problem with any sort of, not any, but a lot of the AI tools today, and also a lot of the translation tools today, where 95% of it is on point and great, but 5% needs the human review. And what that is just, okay, translate it automatically with Word, and then just pay someone 20, 30, 40 bucks an hour to spend what would be 1% of the time they'd otherwise spend just going through that and catching any kind of obvious errors that seem off. But that said, if you are starting from zero, and if this is your first book, 100% go for Word translation or other professional translation platforms and tools that are either free or very cheap. And if you are willing to put some more money into it, then I highly suggest that hybrid approach of the auto and the manual translations. What I will say again is that this is my same problem with AI books, with low content books, is that 95% of the people who approach those genres or hear about, AI books or low content books, approach it through the lens of, I'm going to do this because it's easy and it'll make me a lot of money, or I hope it'll make me a lot of money despite that fact. And translations are not just another avenue to just, oh my God, you take one book, you auto translate into 80 languages, and then you're going to be a millionaire tomorrow. It doesn't work like that. Just like the books in English, just like any self-published book or any book for that matter, it's the sales side, it's the system, it's the marketing that really will make that, will make you serious money. And once again, that's not to say if you have a good book and you put a bunch of translations out there that you won't get some organic traction. It's just the comparative level of growth and kind of scale that you can get out of that that I think is important to remember. Moving on from translations, I want to emphasize the role of hiring and scaling in systemizing a self-publishing business. And by that, I mean, if you do want really to grow this thing, at some point you have to scale beyond yourself and beyond your time. And we've referenced that at various points throughout the last few hours. So ghostwriters is a form of, delegating or automating in a sense. So are cover designers and interior formatters and even just, translators in a sense. And really just bringing that together, right? If you bring those different elements, those different people together, what you can do is you can create these teams that are this kind of self-publishing wheel. And that goes back to the concept of the factory that we looked at earlier. So, and all of the high-level self-publishers that I know do this nearly exclusively. Whereas for them, it's just, okay, my production rate, so to speak, is a book a month. And I say I auto pay or I have on contract a writer that writes this book, one per month. And then once that draft is received, an editor edits it. And then my designers are doing the cover graphics throughout that process. And then I go and list it. And then for them, it's really the question of, well, okay, how do I get from one book a month to 2 books a month? And what's the cost, benefit analysis there? So you can do all of this with remote contractors. You don't need in-person people, and that does make it somewhat flexible. That doesn't mean you're going to start with a book a month. What that means is, maybe again, if you're starting from zero, you write the first few yourself, then you pay total $1,000, $2,000 to get something written, something designed. And then that becomes book every 6 months, book every 3 months, and then you can scale up from there as this catalog of books you're developing funds the development of the new books. Now, I want to emphasize that it's not cost effective to hire generalists compared to remote contractors that specialize in something. So the approach I recommend you take, as opposed to like hiring one person that does everything for you, is more so, uh, create a contract or hire as, say, a 1099, or through a platform like Fiverr, Upwork, Readsy, a writer, then your editor, then your designer, and then either you do the metadata and listing yourself, because that's, doesn't take that much time, or you also just delegate that because it's low skill, so it doesn't cost that much to outsource. Same thing with ads. If someone else is a lot better at ads than you, and if you have no experience with ads, they probably are, then you can just outsource that and you can pay. I think the most I've paid for ad management is $500 a month, for a single ad account. But it's really just, how much you're spending should determine how much you are willing to spend on ad management. Um, and as you get more people and as you build out either one team or multiple teams, especially if they're remote contractors that are working on different platforms, what really does become the problem is data management and sharing and communication and making the timelines work and sync up and making sure that that whole, again, like factory line, so to speak, is efficient and is moving, as it should. So that is kind of the last thing to outsource in the process, right? If you outsource this lower level of the book creation and publishing and marketing, well, then just hiring someone, and this isn't super expensive since this is low skill, quote unquote, management, or really just data, sending messages, keeping people on track of things, so to speak. That's the last thing to outsource, and then once you have that done, that really is a business that just runs itself. Essentially, that is that wheel that just keeps spinning, and if that's a profitable wheel, then that's just you have one wheel. Next up is two wheels. Next up is three wheels, and you can keep going from there. So that rinse and repeat approach to hiring, scaling, automating, delegating is the approach that I recommend you take to, again, grow this business beyond yourself. If you do want to grow it beyond yourself, as opposed to just, you write a few books a year and publish that. And you can do really well with both models. This is just that higher echelon of scale, if that is what you're looking for. Okay, now acquisitions. We spoke about the exit potential and how to exit your own business. The flip side of that is acquiring other self-published portfolios or businesses. Now, my general take on all types of acquisitions, whether looking at or digital acquisitions, I should say. So, your e-com, your media, your blog, your social media profile, or your self-published accounts, is that you really should only acquire, or get into M&A in the self-publishing space if you have some competitive edge or some differentiator that is going to essentially stack onto what you're buying to accelerate the returns there. And by that, I mean, you shouldn't just look at a, Empire Flippers or listing that says, hey, this is selling for a 26x, and think, oh my God, I'm going to make my money back in just under 2 years, a 50% return. It's going to beat the market, and then go and buy it. I think the approach you should take is, okay, hey, I have this upsell system or this info product, for example, that I can plug into the 18 books I know are in this account, and I can triple, the revenue there that way. So I should buy this for the assets. Or, for example, right, if you have, and I say it here, a great marketing team that's really good at ads, really good at graphics, well, go and buy businesses that don't do any marketing, where they're barely doing any ads, and most of the traffic is organic, which proves that the books are, quality assets. And same thing there, right? If you own, say, a blog in the technology space, then we'll buy a portfolio that has rights to books about technology that you could promote through the blog, right? It's really about those synergies. And it's really about, hey, how can you actually accelerate this business? And it's also, if something looks too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true. So if you are going to get, you think, say, an 80%, cash return on your money in the first year, then if I were you, I'd just look at, well, why? Because people don't just hand out, free money. And I say that right here, just watch out for scams. And the platforms to do these deals on are the same as the ones I listed prior when we were speaking about exiting businesses. So Flippa, Buy, Biz, Sell, Empire Flippers, those are kind of the big players in that space. And once again, you do need to look into the rules and the terms of service. This depends on the platform that you want to transfer assets through. On those platforms when you are looking into acquisitions. So I suggest you do that. And again, if something happens, you can let me know and I will connect you to a lawyer that could help you out there. So that's all on acquisitions. One of the last subjects I want to touch on here is the quote unquote Amazon bestseller hack. And this is the most predictable and free, or at the very least cheap way to get yourself Amazon category bestseller status. And by category, I mean number one in the free, bestseller lists on a niche category. This is not overall bestseller status, but if you want some social proof, if you want a one-liner, you can do this and then say, "Hey, this book was number one in the, self-care section." Now the approach here is that you simply drop the price of your ebook on Amazon, preferably to free. So anyone can download your ebook 100% for free. They don't have to pay. And this is through Amazon and through the little marketing tab in the dashboard. And then there's a number of sites out there that have audiences of readers that they connect with these free book or these discounted book deals, right? So they may have 50,000 readers, and then you go to them and say, "Hey, I'm going to drop this, the price of this book to free. All these people like it. It's well reviewed. Can you just promote this to your audience?" And that's their whole business. So it works out for them. And you schedule many promotions within the same 3 to 5 day period. On the books I've run this through, I've gotten anywhere from 5, 8, 100 downloads up to 3 or 4,000 downloads. And every single book I've run this on has hit number one in at least one category. I say it right here. I once hit with a book number 3 on all of Amazon, right? And that's really how powerful this approach is, in that a lot of the category rankings are just dependent upon sales volume. So you're not going to compete in the paid categories. You can drop the book to 99 cents and do the similar approach. It's just the volume is going to be very different there, and you won't really make that much money because you're making 30% of 99 cents. But you can get, again, just a lot of orders there, really get good exposure for your book. But once again, free lists are not the same as paid lists, and this is not making you a number one Amazon bestseller. It's making you a number one Amazon category bestseller. So you can see this link right here. This should be public link to just some of those sites. I'm not affiliated with any of them, but you can see those right here. So you can go to any one of these, and for example, Indies Today, editorial reviews, books. Let's go to another one, Book Gorilla, right? Here's a good example. So get deep discounts on premium bestsellers, bargain Kindle books, freebies, and our favorite goodies. So you can promote your book here, and then they have their email list with 100,000 people on it or whatever it is, and then you can get a lot of orders, and then the people on the other end get the discounts or free books. So that is the approach there, to especially when you're starting out. Go and get yourself a best-selling book. For most of those sites, or at least for some of them, you can not pay anything for, I'd say, 30 to 60%, depending on the kind of site that you're looking for. You do have to pay anywhere from $30 up to a few $100. So again, just depending on the amount of money you want to put in there. This is, I think, the final slide. It's probably the most important slide, or one of the most important as well. So what I really want to emphasize here in this do not list is first, there's a whole bunch here, so let's just get into it. Do not publish on audiobook platforms that aren't ACX. That's a very unfortunate fact, because we shouldn't, as self-publishers, have to be constrained to one platform. But the unfortunate reality is that you're going to make 10 times plus more money on ACX versus anywhere else. If you're in the 99% of self-publishers, if you're some, freak edge case, good for you, and please go and do it. But for everyone else, unfortunately, we just have to list on ACX. I've taken a bunch of my audiobooks because I had a ACX account get shut down, and I reposted them on a different platform, and there was quite literally a 97% revenue drop there or something. Now that's a platform side constraint. Something I've spoken to throughout this whole presentation is also just that quality constraints and the general approaches that people take, either low content, AI books, spamming translations, and all of those things. And I think the general approach or mindset in self-publishing, where people think it's easy to do it this way, so I'm going to do it this way, and then they expect results, is just, it just doesn't work. And it's just going to drive your motivation into the ground, because you're going to think, oh, this is easy. It's not going to be easy. And then you're going to fail and not want to, keep going. This applies in business as a whole. This is not exclusive to self-publishing. It's really just the notion of, if it was easy to do, everyone would be doing it. So if you are just spamming books, if you're creating bad books, if you're throwing up 1,000 AI books a day, you're not going to do as well versus if you just sat down, spent a while creating a good book, marketed that really well, and then just rinsed and repeated that process over the course of years or decades. That's what's going to make you a lot of money here, not the notion of, hey, how do I get around the rules? How do I get around having to just create a quality product? In parallel to that, just don't buy reviews and don't violate platform terms of service. It's just not worth it to risk your entire portfolio and everything you've worked for here over, say, 20 reviews that are 5 stars. Like, there are ways that we've explored, throughout this video to get reviews. And there's a lot more than that. Worst case, you just go and you ask people on the street to, just review your book and read it. You ask for a honest review and you don't force them to do it. But all the same. Also, in my experience, IngramSpark's promotional lists do not work in terms of driving a profitable return. You'll see what I mean if you publish on Ingram, because they have a little, hey, do you want to promote this book, kind of pop up when you hit publish. They are rolling out a lot of new ad tools right now that are interesting. I think they're still significantly worse than if you just advertise those books through your own PPC accounts. But you can play around with those. I just suggest for now not paying for Ingram's promotional lists. Now, for the KDP ebooks and the pricing and publishing there, I spoke to this earlier, touched on it briefly, but there's a line in the sand that they've drawn. I believe it's $2.99. I need to double check that. But if you're talking about $2.99, if you publish for over that amount, as in you price your book over $2.99, you get 70% royalty. So $3, 70% is what, $2.10. Now, if you price that at below that $2.99 mark, so $1.99, 99 cents, because you have to publish in 99 cents increments for ebooks, you make 30%. So at the $2 mark, right, you're making 60 cents. At the $2.99 mark, you're making $2. So that's a 3x spread in the royalty that you're getting, just going off a $1 price difference. So what that effectively means, and what Amazon is trying to do with that incentive structure, is basically just disencourage anyone from publishing for books for cheap or for free, and then just create a kind of quality, like, lower bound in terms of pricing for the whole market. What that means as a self-publisher is that you have to publish for $2.99, $3.99 or over. So just absolutely do not, and you will not be better off if you publish for 99 cents and just hope you're going to get more sales because it's cheap. I also touched on this note earlier, but if you pay $100 for someone to write a full book, or to edit a full book, or to translate manually a whole book, right? You cannot expect that to be good, and I can nearly guarantee they're doing it in 12 seconds with ChatGPT. Um, and now on the ad note inside of things, if you and a lot of people do this who aren't familiar with ads, throw up a single advertisement and you run it for a few days on $20 a day, you spend $40, you don't get a single sale, and then quit. That's not the fault of the ads, that's the fault of how you approach the ads. Like advertising in the PPC format is inherently a game of optimization and of iteration and of testing a lot of things and seeing what sticks. So we went over the whole system in this video. And you can do it cost effectively by just a very low amount to spend per campaign, figure out what works, and then just reallocate the whole budget into that top performing campaign. And then keep just split testing with that previous top performing campaign now is the lower bound performance wise for new campaigns, where you just test other variables there. If you do it that way, you will see some return. That's not to say that all your ads are going to be profitable or even break even, a costs or sales or revenue wise. But if you want to give it a chance properly, you need to take it that way and in that manner, as opposed to just one campaign, one day, $20. This final note here, once again, I'm just beating a dead horse at this point, but if you just throw a book up, you publish it, and you never think about it again, as in you don't put any effort into marketing or sales, you can't have any expectations about that book doing well organically, because it probably won't. That's unfortunately not the world we live in on these platforms, because they are just so saturated with millions and millions and millions of books. You can do really well organically, but if you bet on that fact, then you're going to be in a much invariably worse situation than the inverse of doing your best, figuring out how to build actually a sales and marketing system around one book. Because if you do it for one book, you can do it for all books. That largely sums, I guess, 2.5, 3 hours now of this video. So congratulations on making it through there. I do want to give a very brief shout out to these 3 people on the screen. So that's Sean, Dale, and Dane. None of these guys know me. I haven't talked to them ever. But when I was just getting into the space, even especially for Dale here, I was watching these guys as I was learning and figuring things out. I was also watching these guys. They are the OGs in the space. In addition to a few others, just these are the guys, especially that I've watched, or at least gotten the most value from. They also make videos on this, self-publishing, KDP, and so on full time. This is just one video on my channel. So if you want to learn a lot more, if you want specifics, I suggest you go to these 3 YouTube channels, and I put the handles up here on the screen. And to all 3 of you, if you're watching this, I do appreciate the content that you make, and it does help all of us watching on the other side there. So with that being said, the last, I guess, quote unquote key that I want to speak on for this video is that you can do really well with this. Don't think you can't. You absolutely can. And once again, if you're starting from zero, this is a really good way to get going, comparatively speaking, when you're looking at a lot of these other quote unquote passive or quote unquote digital models out there. Not that self-publishing is passive, as we've spoken of. So it does compound. And what that means is it could take a few years for you to really get going. But once it does get going, that curve is going to be like this, just a classic kind of exponential spin there. So if you do systemize it, if you do all the things and then follow the steps we've explored in this video, and you do stick with it for long enough, then you will get that curve there, and life hopefully, will be good. So with that being said, you 100% got this, and I want to hear from you. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. And also, just once you start doing this, let's just use the comments as a community forum in a sense. So just put your thoughts down there, put your wins and your losses down there, and we can support each other as, we're all trying and kind of pursuing that same goal of creating just cool things that people like to read, or valuable things that people like to read, and getting them out into the world. So that is the video. You have my email there if you need to contact me for any reason related to, again, the whole lawyer thing, or for any other reason, just to say, share your story or your questions in this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.